I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to home.
To the Dutch dunes we go, readying ourselves for a high-pressure run around these speedy sweepers. A circuit which definitely sees track position be the key to success, overtaking a thing of great difficulty round here. It is possible, but I'm sure we'll see our fair share of action play out across the race. We're at the centre of the four-wheeled motorsport scene in the Netherlands, a circuit which has been used since the late 40s. It's been through various upgrades over the years and has recently come back into recognition of the world as it was fired back onto the F1 calendar last year. Despite not being raced, it is certainly a track back in the limelight. Whilst last round may not have been a thriller, it was unpredictable and some excellent strategy plays, and those driving with the long game in mind. We saw a three-way fight between Janus Brakshock, Alex Siebel and Michi Hoyer duke it out for top honours. It was of course the latter who came out on top to score his third consecutive victory in the 2021 World Championship. Will it be four? There's only one way to find out. It's time for the Formula SimRacing World Championships Dutch Grand Prix, brought to you by SimLab, 3D Wrap, Masita Esports and The Race. As always this season, it's myself, Lewis McGlade, alongside me in the commentary booth, Ewan O'Leary. Hello.
Yeah, hello Lewis, and hello to everybody at home as well. Looking forward to this race, round 4 of our season already in a circuit. This one example is where we saw a lot of drama last season. Jonas Simic disconnecting from the race, Dennis Jordan taking the victory in the end, and it was very close as well. I believe the top 5 cars were separated by like 3 seconds or something close to that. So yeah, hopefully we get something similar here tonight, but you can be guaranteed there's going to be a lot of drama, and I think a lot of it is going to be loaded towards the front of the race. Here's the calendar, by the way, going to the Dutch Grand Prix today. We'll be heading to Britain in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, as I was saying, I think qualifying and the very start of this race is obviously going to be very important, because we're going to be using the words, other than tyre strategy, which we say every week quite a lot, but 2 words, track position, are going to be very important tonight.
I don't think we're going to see too many of those 4-stoppers that we've seen a few times over the last couple, which invokes a lot of difficulty. This is one that may well open up a couple of mistakes for some of our drivers in the World Championship.
Yeah, quite possibly. I guess this one and the Azure Grand Prix is going to be the 2 kind of highlighted in that kind of respect, really. The walls are quite close around here. There's not much runoff, even though they have kind of redone it a little bit with the anticipation of maybe having an F1 Grand Prix here later this year. It's a little bit harder to crash on, but not much easier, if you see what I mean. If you go off here, you are going to have a bit of an accident, and it's not going to be pretty. Here is the championship standings as well. Michi Hoyer leading by 27 points after only 3 rounds, and he's won the first 3 races in a row. You'll notice there Alex Siebel in P3 in the championship. He's 39 points away right now. He got 4th place last time out. You may have seen last week if you were tuned in, and I hope you were, because it was a good race. He came 2nd on the road, but he's demoted to 4th for that incident with Janus Brakshock during the race. He got a 2-place penalty from the race results of that particular Grand Prix, so he's lost 6 points in the championship, and he's lost his podium as well.
Yeah, so that does promote Janus Simic onto the podium. So Simic is now has 3 podiums to his name so far this season over the first 3 rounds, which is obviously good for him, our double world champion. For those of you that are looking at this thinking, I mean, this is looking pretty good for Michi Hoyer. We are only a quarter of the way into the season, so there's still plenty to play for. And I will just note a couple of things here. And, you know, I think we all want to see Michi Hoyer have success in the World Championship, but it has happened 3 times before in the World Championship in the 20 previous seasons, where a driver has won the first 3 races but has failed to convert that to a World Championship. It happened for the first time back in 2003 with Gregor Hutu. Won the first 5 races, in fact, that season. He didn't win the championship. That's more because he actually departed the season after round 7. So that one's a bit of a fair cop. But the other 2 times, Kolber in 06, Morgan Morand in 2014, both winning the opening 3 races and both coming up short by less than 10 points to the championship at the end. How do you reckon Mitchy Hoy's been through any of these stats, or do you think he's just coming here to play things out and see how it goes?
Yeah, there's absolutely no way he will have known any of that. But
not a nerd like me.
Well, he doesn't have as much time on his hands as we do, I suspect. But anyway, he probably won't know about that. Let's be honest. But he will be wanting to not repeat that. Obviously, I mean, I said at the end of last week's race at the Nürburgring, I said that Mitchy Hoy was now the slight favourite to take this championship. I know that we're early on still, and it's only a 27-point margin at the moment. I would still count him as a slight favourite, but as you mentioned, there's a long way to go here. We're only a quarter of the way through the season, still 9 races to go to recover this one for Rd.4 SimRacing, or for anybody really who really wants to come from the back and try to make a championship charge this year. So yeah, Mitchy Hoy has started off well, but he can't afford to take his foot off the gas because Simoncic hasn't exactly been performing badly. He's just been slightly outperformed by Jordan so far.
For anyone wanting to know as well, it did actually happen 3 other times, someone winning the first 3, 4, 5 races of the season, sometimes even more. Last times it happened, Marquez back in 08, House back in 11, and Jene Simoncic back in 2019. So it's happened 6 times in total. 3 have ended up in championships, 3 have ended up not being. We'll see what happens towards the end of this season. As you can see, we are in the qualifying session and the times are coming in. And at the moment, at the top of the session, our Nürburgring pole sitter, Janis Brakshock from Ibrahim Khan, Danny van der Neet, who I'm pretty sure with Danny van der Neet, it's his birthday today, so I'm not 100% sure on it, but I'm still going to throw out a happy birthday anyway and keep our fingers crossed. Of course, they are driving, the NetRex drivers, out of respect with Alessio Campos, who died this time last year. I remember it being quite a heartfelt moment. We had our tributes paid out at that point in the year, and obviously coming here to the Dutch Grand Prix around about that time, it's fitting to run a livery in tribute of Campos. So we'll hope and keep our fingers crossed that NetRex do well today. Peter Berliak crosses the line, a 109.266 to top the timesheets at the moment. Qualifying here, Ewan, is going to be so important.
Yeah, possibly the most important part of the whole evening, arguably, at this point. As we see David Mojcik with a purple middle sector, things going well for him so far. But yeah, don't expect it. Well, we have got Thomas Vac and Jeffrey Fournier out there on the hards at the moment, but don't expect any of the front runners to be doing that today. You need the track position around here. That's what all of these guys are going for right now. Mojcik, likewise, he goes into 2nd place. Good job from him so far. Peter Berliak's good time, actually, there. At the front of the order. There's Jeffrey Fournier going off the line. That's the problem with running the hard tyres. He's just going to be too far back as Noah Roybers gets himself into 2nd place. A good performance from him as well. Wasn't quite expecting that at the start of the day, but that's a good opening lap time from him.
Yeah, nice stuff. But the way it is with the session, how it unfolds, again, for those of you just joining us in the World Championship, and just a reminder for anyone who's just here and to help you understand how it works, as Thomas Vac crosses the line and goes to 15th place. For those qualifying, you get 3 hot laps across this qualifying session. You can do it whenever you want. You can do them at the start, all in one, well, not all in one go. You can do one run, all back to back. At the start, or you can maybe save them up and time things later in the session, spread them out however you wish. You've not got a particularly long session to pull out those laps, but they only get 3 attempts. And one thing that I was having a little bit of a chat after the race with Carlos Martin, who isn't here. He was saying that the laps at the Nürburgring, we were praising him for qualifying in 4th place, but he was basically saying that his lap wasn't perfect. Ibrahim Khan said the same thing. He had a personal best qualifying of the season. He said his lap wasn't particularly that good. And the thing is, with a session like this, Nürburgring's a hard track. Zandvoort is a hard track. To absolutely nail a lap to perfection is so difficult in this high pressure environment.
Yeah, it really is, and with the limited time that these guys have got, you're thinking 10 minutes, you know, it's plenty of time for these guys to get out and do the lap time that they need, but it's actually not. And especially when you consider that these guys actually only have 3 hot laps to do it in, that should be enough. But around the circuit, with the difficulty that we have here at Zandvoort, it is going to be quite tricky to actually get the perfect lap time in. So I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to be saying that exact thing after tonight's qualifying session, but it's all about just making do with what you have on the night and just trying to maximise that as we're on board right now, trying to get up inside the top 15, maybe top 10 if we can do, but it's very, very close in this kind of cluster in the mid-pack. It's a little bit spaced out up front, but Ibrahim Khan's only 6 tenths off the order, off the top of the standings right now, and he's down in 15th place, so it is very, very close.
Yeah, I think super tight. Purple first sector from Janis Brakshock wasn't enough to slap himself on a second consecutive pole position in the World Championship. He'll have another run to try and make things stick. We were on board over that lap with Stephen Michaels, who will keep our fingers crossed that he can make it through the race. Has been saying that there's some fairly stormy weather in Florida, where he's based at the moment, and naturally with that, there's a little bit of a risk of some potential disconnections and other misgivings. Alex Siebel across the line, currently in 10th position. Where's he going to improve to? Only tonight. But Petr Berliak, who's currently on that pole position, is going to cross the line. Is there an improvement? He's got it was an improvement by 2 thousandths as far as my timing has. So yes, but not by much.
No, not a significant improvement to really help him out in any way, really, as Ibrahim Khan comes over the line. 8th place for him. He jumps up a fair amount, and he's now 3 tenths away from Petr Berliak as we're on board with Thomas Vack. Now, one of the very few drivers who are going out there at the moment on the hard compound tyres. Luca Di Melio, likewise, on the soft tyres, though. He's into 17th place right now. And another driver over the line, trying to work out...
Boom.
Sorry, Michi Hoyer, yeah. Sorry, I didn't even notice that. But yeah, straight to pole by nearly 2 tenths of a second.
Looking for his 3rd pole position of the season. Remind us back to San Marino and Portugal, where he had pole positions there. He was denied last time out of the German Grand Prix as Janis Brakshock took pole position that day, but it was a 3rd consecutive victory for Hoyer nonetheless. Mohamed Patel across the line in only 12th. Hoyer's lap time there, a 1:09.0. Extremely impressive. 2 tenths clear of Petr Berliak, 2 tenths clear of his teammate Jani Simoncic. How many times do we have to be surprised by Hoyer?
Well, I'm continuing to be a little bit surprised. I can't lie at this point. He's still pulling it out the bag, though, and in a qualifying session that is so important, it's a very, very good performance from him to do that. I have a feeling that Simoncic might have something to say about it, and a few guys behind as well who may want to try and get up the order and into that pole position, but we'll wait and find out. Got a little bit of time to find out here. On board with Michaels at the moment, trying to work out where or if he's going to be able to jump up the order very much, because he's got a couple of attempts up to Melio and then 4 attempts up to Zooks, who is up in 17th place at the moment. Oh, he's not going to improve like that, though. Slide on the exit of the Audi S there, and he's straight into the wall, front wing off. That's the end of his qualifying session.
A bit of a shame, bit of an incident there. It's kind of one of those things that we expect to see in this session, to be perfectly honest. It's a very difficult circuit, and the curbs on the exit are fairly large. Saw crashes galore in them in the previous races throughout the day. Basically, when they're running wide and onto the curbs, this is another one. There's 2 parts of the curb, and where it flattens out, and then there's the second part, you can bottom out the centre of the car if you're running it a little bit too wide. So not ideal for some drivers preparing for their final lap in this qualifying session. Berliak has started his. We keep our eye on Danny Kish, who, from memory, and I can't remember 100%, so bear with me, but I'm pretty sure he had his vaccination fairly recently, and said that he wasn't 100% sure he was going to make the day, feeling fairly ill, but seems to have been all right, touch wood, and continuing as things stand, looking for a backup from a fairly disappointing run last time out, involved in an incident in the early stages. Gets himself up inside the top 10 to 8th place, ahead of Dennis Jordan. Yeah,
it's a good performance from him as we're looking at Danny van der Neet, and that, I have to say, quite nice looking new NetRex livery. 14th place for Van der Neet at the moment as he slides to a stop afterwards. Not many purple sectors out there at the moment, though. Hoyer can't even improve on his own lap time right now. That's 2 sectors where he's not improving. Berliak was going a little bit faster in the first one, but not in the second, so it's looking pretty good for Michi Hoyer right now, although Simoncic has got 2 personal best sectors as Berliak goes over the line, gets a little bit closer, but he can't topple Hoyer. Let's see if his teammate can, coming through the final corner.
It's looking pretty decent, but I'm just not sure it's enough. It is a very strong middle sector. What can Jerne Simoncic do across the line? It is not enough. He improves to within 3 thousandths of Petter Berliak, but it looks like, at the moment, Michi Hoyer is going to hang on once again. Colin Spork, the full-time replacement of Maguire at Edge eSports, crosses the line. 10th place, he's going to stay. Decent start, though, for his debut in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. But for the 3rd time this season, at a track where it could be so important, Michi Hoyer is once again on top.
Yeah, for the 5th time in World Championship history, he's taken a pole position. So massive congratulations to him for that one. Very, very good performance. And if there ever was a time when he needed to pull that kind of performance out of the bag, then this was it. There's the confirmation of your results. Petter Berliak, 2nd place. Good performance from him considering the season he's had so far. It's not quite gone to plan despite the podium back in Portugal. Simoncic is in 3rd to have Mocek, who likewise has put in a good drive there. Noah Roivers, reserve drive for Carlos Martin today, into 5th place, ahead of Mohamed Patel, Dennis Jordan, Jonas Braxox, Tom Savali and Colin Spork to round out your top 10.
And the thing is, for those drivers behind, there are some surprises in this qualifying session. For those of you that are understanding of how the rules work in this series, some drivers have qualified on the softs, other drivers have qualified on the hards. So those that have qualified on the hards are ticking off one of their mandatory sets of hard tyres across the evening. They have to run them twice. So they've got 1. They'll have to run another one in the race. Everyone else will have to run 2. The thing is, around here where track position is so very important, I'm not 100% sure how well that strategy is going to work. Those 4 drivers, as an FYI, Thomas Vack, who's qualified in 20th, and then the 3 positions behind, Jim Parisas, Ricardo Costa and Jeffrey Fournier, all on the hard tyres. Sergio Fletcher will be starting from the back of the grid, courtesy of he's jumped in to replace Ernest Lappins in the final moments of the session. Well, I mean, what a qualifying session it was, and in the consideration that Michi Hoyer is once again on pole position in the FSR World Championship, he is the perfect guy to take us around a lap of the circuit.
This is Formula Sim Racing. My name is Michi Hoyer and I welcome you guys to round 4 of the Formula Sim Racing 2021 season. We are at Zandvoort and we are out for track presentation, so we're going around the final turn to start our flying lap here around the Zandvoort circuit. Banked final turn to go onto the main straight and across the line to start our lap into the best and probably also only overtaken spot. Turn 1, heavy on the brakes, 180-degree right-hand turn. Important to get down the traction for a short sprint up to turn 3. Up the hill, car wants to become oversteer a bit over the crest into turn 4. Very nice banked turn that you can drive in the middle of the road. Qualifying will be very important as overtaking is utterly hard around here. Turn 7, downhill we go, understeer first, then compression turns into oversteer. Into turn 8 we go, second sector's just started, all high speed, and then narrow turn 9 and 10. 2 pretty technical kind of hairpins, first right then left. Interesting with dive bombs into the left-hander indeed, it's also into the right-hander like we've seen in the pre-season. Into the chicane we go, nice and tidy, you need to be on the inside here, power on the exit, and then the ever so important final turn. Really take most of the curb, carry all the speed, flat out over the banked final turn, over the crest and across the line we go, guys. That is 1 lap here around the Zandvoort circuit, and I wish you guys a lot of joy, a lot of fun watching the races today in the Formula Sim Racing Championships.
Qualifying complete for yet another race. 72 laps ahead of us in the Dutch Grand Prix here. Round 4 in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Michi Hoyer on top again. And we were saying that a circuit where it's going to be so very important to hang on to that track position, what a perfect way he has to start his evening. In the commentary booth, Lewis McGlade, Ewan O'Leary to take you through the action today. And considering it was such a close race last season, it may not have been the biggest thriller when it comes to the actual racing action. There was a lot of drama. It came down to the wire very, very close at the end. In fact, the top 3 last year were separated by less than a second. Dennis Jordan, Petr Berliak, Mohamed Patel. We're going to see the same kind of thing this season? I'm not so sure.
No, I'm not so sure either. With the particular tyre strategies that these guys now have to employ, there was tyre strategy going on last season, of course, but it's more prominent this season, and I think it spaces out the field a little bit more, and we end up having a bit of a showdown, really, between 2 or 3 cars. That's kind of the pattern so far. Michi Hoyer was having to hold off Liam de Waal at the end of Imola. There was a couple of battles towards the end. Well, he did kind of run away with Portugal, but in Germany there was a few cars involved. Alex Siebel and Michi Hoyer were battling it out again there. So I think it is going to come down to 2 or 3 cars right towards the end again. But I think the strategy for Michi Hoyer and all of those guys at the front really has to be soft, hard. There's no other way to do this, really. You need to keep the track position, because otherwise you're either going to get undercut if you're pitting on a different lap, or overcut if you're pitting on a different lap, or you're just going to run the risk of getting overtaken if you take the hard tyres either at the start of the race or through your second stint. So I think that Michi Hoyer has no choice, really, other than to employ that strategy for the 4th time in 4 races.
Soft, hard. You made it there, Ewan, and let's be real here. That is the strategy that has been victorious in each of the races this season so far. It's the strategy that that has been held by Michi Hoyer, that has been aced by Michi Hoyer over the first couple of rounds of the season. He was under a lot of pressure, though, for that strategy to work out at Germany, because realistically, all things standing, it was a tight battle that time, and realistically only kind of just about came out on top.
Yeah, I mean, it was close. Alex Siebel did a good kind of closing of the gap, and he was very, very good on the alternate strategy. I think it did work out for him. He just couldn't get through in the end, and that was kind of the end of it. He didn't really use the momentum that he had when cruising up to the back of the German to really get through, and then he was kind of stuck there after that. So it was just very difficult for Siebel to get through. He did get that 2-place penalty, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on. Did Alex Siebel, so he finished in the end 4th place. I thought that was a pretty harsh penalty personally, but I'm not one of the stewards, so we'll leave that point on the side for a moment. But it did allow Jurne Simičić to get into 3rd place. It allowed Janus Brakshock to get into 2nd. And by the way, that was Simicic's 50th World Championship podium last time out at Nürburgring, retrospectively given to him because of that penalty, but nevertheless, a quite astonishing achievement.
And Mr. Consistency, Alex Siebel himself, still scoring some decent points. I will just say one thing that he posted on social media afterwards was that he was a little bit disappointed that the penalty happened, that obviously, he was knocked off. But when we saw that incident between himself and Janus Brakshock going into the Mercedes Arena section, it was, I think a penalty was fair. I think a 2-place maybe a little bit harsh, which should have been just 1 place, but we'll throw Cam under the bus about that later on anyway. It's fine. Either way, 4th place on the road, he was actually very happy about that, because the most important thing that he said he took from that was the pace was there. And that's kind of that's what I like seeing with Siebel at the moment, is he's maybe not had the best race, but he's picking apart the positives and just carrying the momentum with that.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not getting bogged down in the penalty and how unfair it is, or how unfair he judged it to be, and all that kind of thing. Just kind of getting his head down and taking the positives for that one. So yeah, it's a good way to take the penalty, certainly, to kind of deal with it like that. And that is a good attitude to have for him. But as you mentioned, Mr. Consistency, really, he's been 4th now for the first 3 races. In all 3 of those occasions, finished in the points 9 times out of 10 in last season's race. In last year's season is what I was meant to say. So expect to see him in the points here once again, maybe even on the podium. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that he can bounce, but I know we're not supposed to support people, but it would be nice to see him bounce back
Are we not?
and get on the podium for real.
What's this Sancho bias that I keep getting criticised of?
Well, yeah, I can't blame people, to be honest, but I'm not affiliated with anybody, by the way, so I'm totally impartial. Lewis is biased, but I'm impartial.
I'm only biased because I have a Mesita eSports Sancho shirt, and so obviously I'm supporting the sponsor of the FSR World Championship, Mesita eSports, along with SimLab 3D Wrap and the race as well. Speaking of the race, we'll be going to it ever so shortly. 72 laps, same as it was last season. A reminder again that there was high drama that season as Jene Simoncic was disconnected from the race. He qualified in second place and was running up towards the top lot. It was Dennis Jordan who came out for his victory last season. Shows that Evolution go quite well here. Maybe we can expect the same kind of thing, although they're not starting, not starting from pole position as Dennis Jordan was last season. So things could be a little bit trickier.
Yeah, I think Dennis Jordan's had a pretty tricky season so far, in all honesty. Only a 5th and a 6th so far, and 11th last time out. You remember he went deep into his box in the first stint at Nürburgring and never really recovered. Couldn't really get through the traffic to make up the positions and make up the time that he lost. So he's in tied 6th place in the championship at the moment. It's not been great for him, it has to be said. But you never know, he can bounce back this season certainly, and he's got the talent to. There's no doubt about that. He's had a pole before, won this race last year, as you mentioned, and he's got a good teammate to help him, got a good team around him. So, we'll be expecting good things from Evolution Motorsport, as we always do. But I guess we can't really call him a dark horse anymore. But one person I'm going to be watching today closely is Jonas Braksok. Good season so far. Again, like Siebel last season, scored points in 9 out of 10 races in 2020, did Braksok, and got second last time out at the Nürburgring, got pole as well. So I'll be watching out for him for a sneaky podium as well today.
Yeah, potentially. So we'll have to do quite a lot of work from 8th place on the grid. We'll get the qualifying order up on screen in just a moment. Those drivers that we've been bigging up and potentially hoping for more big things this season. It was a tight qualifying session between a lot of the order. A reminder of your championship order, which we currently have on screen. Of course, Michi Hoyer is leading the World Championship on 75 points, a fair way clear of his teammate and double world champion, Jene Simoncic. Alex Siebel up there, Janis Braksok and Petr Bojek, definitely a driver to keep an eye on today for BS Williams. He'll be running off from the front row of the grid. Liam Duval as well. Let's take a look at that order then. Michi Hoyer and Petr Bojek on that front row of the grid, with Jene Simoncic and David Marocek up at the top end of things in 4th place. Behind this, great qualifying session from Noah Roivers, replacing Carlos Martin and doing a good job for Alessio Campus's livery. Mohamed Patel, Dennis Jordan and Janis Braksok round out the top 8, with Tom Savalli and Colin Spork just getting himself inside the top 10. Sancho Sim Sports on the 6th row of the grid with Danny Kish and Ibrahim Khan in 12th place. Then we find Alex Siebel. Again, that pace was so good last round, maybe struggling a little bit here. Robin Panzar, Danny Van Den Eet and Lorenz Doherty, who will hopefully go a little bit further than he did last year in this race. He only lasted a lap of proceeding. Zolcic and Luca D'Amelio down the order, and Steve Michaels in 19th position. Thomas Vack qualified on the hard tyres, and he'll be rolling off from 20th position with Jim Paresis, Ricardo Costa and Jeffrey Fournier, those that qualified on the hard tyres. Sergio Fletcher will be starting from the back of the grid after he was not able to qualify, courtesy of being a late sign up to the race. You know what question I'm going to ask you here. I hope you've prepared yourself. Who's going to win the race?
Well, no, I haven't prepared myself, but
well,
I
said hope you had.
I think that Michi Hoyer is going to win again. I think there's nobody going to be able to get around him, really. I think the thing that's really kind of made that decision certain in my mind is that look at the amount of burst cars he has around him right now. Simoncic is in 3rd, Marocek is in 4th place right now. And if you look at guys like Burliak, who looks like the closest man to actually challenging him in this race. Mohamed Patel, yes, he's in 6th place, but he's on a different strategy. He's a little bit further back, whereas Mitchy Hoyer, when you've got those teammates around, you can kind of, do things on the strategy, overtaking, getting in the way, holding cars up, all that kind of thing. You can do that if you've got teammates who are kind of working for the same goal as you are. So, yeah, I think that's really going to help Hoyer today, and Berliak is going to struggle to get around him, although Simoncic is not going to pass up an opportunity to get around the German, that's for sure.
Wow, you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen, I'm pretty sure that was maybe Janis Prakshok running wide there out of T10. And, why not maybe go for a little bit of cooling on your tyres? I've heard the grass is good for that. But either way, rolling back there, you can see, look at the hard tyre runners. From 6th all the way down to 23rd, all on the hard tyres. Fletcher on the softs at the back of the grid, and the top 5, now they need to make sure they get a clean start and that they run away from the pack behind, because they have such an advantage in the early stages.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be massive for them, and they're going to be miles in front by the time we get round to our first pit stops, around 15 laps in, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe later than that actually, but whatever they're going to be, they're going to be miles in front. So I'm afraid to be the bearer of bad news here, by the way, but I think in the first stint there's going to be a lot of single file running. These kind of 2 packs of cars, you've got the top 5 and then you've got the rest. They're going to be kind of racing against each other, almost as if they're in a qualifying session in this one. They're just going to be single file trying to do the lap times that they need to try and get this race. Yeah, I think it's going to be single file for the first parts of the race, but then when we get to those pit stops, the strategy will start to come into play and these drivers will start to really go for those overtakes. It's going to be an interesting race.
I think that may well have been the slowest formation up we could possibly have had here. We'll see who's going to come out on top. My pick, by the way, Petr Berliak. I think he's going to come out on top, especially considering BS Competition are in the chat keeping our eye on things, and they'll be backing what is sort of their driver for this season, BS Williams, of course, joining up for the 2021 World Championship. Mitchy Hoyer on pole position, though, for the 3rd time this season at the Dutch Grand Prix Formula SimRacing World Championship. Round 4 is underway in the Netherlands. It looks like it's the best start, though, from Jerne Simoncic. Is going to try and sweep around the outside of Tarzan as everyone's gone all smoky. They're going side by side. Hoyer's clear at the lead, and Petr Berliak is going to be hanging on to 2nd place.
Great start from Mitchy Hoyer. The soft tyre runners slick into line, as you might expect. There's a little bit more side by side going on further back, but big slide as well for Tom Sadlerley, trying to get through on Janis Prakshok, but couldn't do it as we go through the sweepers and up the hill.
Yeah, we're with Alex Siebel here. Colin Sporks dropped back a couple of positions. Alex Siebel's trying to instantly sweep through and grab himself a position, which he does so. Oh, no, not quite. He's trying to use the aggression on the early stage of the race and just not able to find his way through. We're going single file already, and no one has been quite able to take advantage on these hard tyres. Alex Siebel, though, what we're getting the note, or at least on the tower, looked like he's on the softs. I think he is actually on the hards. Yeah. No panic.
Yeah, he is on the hards. He's just switched now, so yeah, that is correct that he is on the hard compound tyres, but not really able to make up ground that we might have expected in that particular opening lap there. It was a very clean start as well through lap 1. For the last couple of races, we've seen some terrible driving on the opening lap and a lot of crashing. But fortunately this time we've kept it all nice and clean. Mitchy Hoyer's kept it very clean. Look at this, already nearly a 2nd lead over Petr Berliak. He's not even waiting around today. He wants to put as much time into those hard tyre runners as humanly possible, and he's not waiting around to do it either.
No, trying to open things out as early as we can, go through Holdenholtz. You can see that wide line running all the way around the top end at T4. I didn't quite like that line. It reminds me of oval racing a little bit. I know you're a bit of a fan of oval racing. Danny Van Den Eet, 16th position. Luca D'Amelio ahead. Thomas Vack behind. Getting a bit of a closer look at the tribute livery to Alessio Campos, who unfortunately passed away last year, and they'll be trying to do well as things stand, although that is not going to help things. A bit of a slide there. Oh, that was going to be a little bit of a dodgy rejoin, and then everyone's darting around to try and find their way through the middle of the pack. Doherty's got through, as has Parisis, as has Sergio Fletcher.
Yeah, a bit of an unfortunate moment because he was kind of on the line where he was, so he thought, well, I better get off here, and people have already started to avoid him, and in that he went into their path, so he was kind of damned if he moved and damned if he didn't move, really, in that one, from what I saw anyway. Unfortunately for Danny Van Der Neeten, he's already down to 22nd position. Sergio Fletcher, by the way, the only person outside of the top 5 not to go onto those hard tyres. You can see he's on the softs right now. He might be the main source of entertainment for the first 15 laps or so before these pit stops, because he can't afford to wait around really, using one of his soft tyre stints in the traffic, and he's going to need to get through as quickly as possible. As we look at Ibrahim Khan trying to get past his teammate Danny Kish for the last points paying position right now.
2020 Grand Prix winner at this venue. Dennis Jordan currently on our screen, 6th position, the highest place hard tyre runner. He got by Mohammed Patel in the early stages of the race, and he's trying to claw down the gap to Noah Roivers ahead, and to be fair, doing a fairly good job at least of holding stable at the moment. Sorry, just going to focus on one thing a little bit further back as 22nd and 23rd. I know it is far down the order, but Danny Van Der Neet and Jeff Fournier are having this massive battle at the moment. Running through turn 10, there's near contact. They've been going side by side a fair few corners. Jeffrey Fournier is going to have to do it the hard way around against Hans Ernst, but no way through at the moment. Van Der Neet able to hang on after those mistakes. Jeff Fournier, no progress made.
No, not for this occasion, but it was a little bit of a surprise to see so much battling going on further down the order here, but they're so far down anyway, there's almost no point in running that single file for those guys. There's a little bit of a look to the inside there for Sergio Fletcher and Jim Parisis on that occasion, but no way through for him down at turn 1. He's going to look for anywhere else to kind of go through here. Very high line through here though, this kind of banked turn 4 I think it is, and then you get this run down the sweepers and up the hill again towards the my favourite part of the circuit. He might even go for a dive on the inside, but it's just too fast at this portion of the racetrack to really go for something. I am enjoying seeing those guys run high like an oval through turn 4.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a reminder back to our Indy Pro Championship last year, which was a fantastic season. Go back and watch the entire races of all of them, or just that video that someone made, we'll have to wait and see if we go any more oval racing across 2021. This is about as close as we're going to get in the World Championship as things stand, running onto that banking as high as it is. Petr Beliak at the moment on our screen then. He's holding the gap to Michi Hoyer, 1.1 seconds. It's currently standing. Whoa, Sergio Fletcher's out of the race. Sergio Fletcher is out of the race. Just saw him have an enormous crash going through Ari Lyondike, the final corner on the circuit. Let's take a look once again at this one as we ride on board with Fletcher.
Yeah, let's see where this happens. Does he go a little bit too wide here and drop? Oh my word, he's got onto the curb, nearly taken off straight into the wall. Well, I have to say I've never seen that before, but he's got the front of the car caught on the raised curbs on the outside of the penultimate corner of this circuit. His car's been launched into the air, no turning, and he's gone straight into that wall that was all too happy to come and collect him. I have to say I've never seen anything quite like that, but he's unfortunately out of the race.
There's a hashtag for that.
Hashtag Cam's fault?
No, hashtag raise your right eye, actually.
Okay.
We'll roll past that one. I've seen that a little bit. It's quite easy. It's just where they're bottoming out. Remember back to 2011 at the Chinese Grand Prix, turn 13 or 14, whatever the corner is, the long. Oh gosh, I even thinking back to the Chinese Grand Prix is making me feel a bit sick. You run up onto that curb and it can fling you up in the air, and basically what's happened there, he's got nothing to steer with on the front end, and obviously bam, straight into the wall. And that is a shame for Fletcher. Hopefully no one else falls foul to that one, which is fairly easy to do on board with Sport, because they run, like you say, it's the banking, the gradient of that banking. It's so steep, and that's why they run quite far up and try and pull it down. It's probably the best way that you can try and get a move. If you run it as far up as possible, you basically get a straight line. You use the banking to accelerate off, and it kind of just helps you accelerate towards Shivlak, but obviously at this point no one's able to quite make that one stick.
Yeah, not for the moment. I mean, I have to say, I did say earlier, I am enjoying seeing those guys go through there like an oval. It is good, but only really for open wheel cars or F1 cars, really, from what I've seen so far. They've made these changes for the F1 cars, don't forget, for the Grand Prix, I believe. Anyway, they've did it for that purpose. I guess, I don't know, I'm not really a fan of it for kind of other racing like GT3. It was kind of, this final corner particularly, it was kind of a committed, not quite flat, kind of nervy corner, but now it's completely flat in everything, and it's a little bit boring. But saying that, it is still cool to see those guys run around the top like that. We're seeing David Mocek at the moment. I have to say, I was expecting these guys as well to run in a bit more of a train. We're seeing that a little bit in the midfield with the hard tyres, but certainly out front, they're not running in a train at all. It's just about running your pace and as quickly as you can go at this particular portion of the race. And that shows to me that the pace is really on at the front. Hoyer's not hanging about, certainly, because even Simičić just can't hang on to the back of Burliak, and Burliak can't really hang on to the back of Hoyer either.
It's a high tyre wear circuit, but it's a high frustration circuit because when you're behind someone, you just can't do anything. You can't get close enough because dirty air kicks in and then you're losing the front end quite a bit. And outside of that, the slipstream is just not too strong. It's all about the difference in tyres. This race will sort of light up a little bit dependent on how people play their tyre strategies. Although for me, it's just, unlike in the last couple of rounds, where we've seen some drivers experiment with things like the 4-stop. At the moment, around here, I'm in the zone of almost treating this a bit more like an endurance race, the Virtual Endurance Championship or other endurance series, where you just push the fuel tank as far as it will go. Maybe save a little bit of fuel if you can, and just push it as far as you can, and just try and gain track position that way by shorter stops.
Yeah, that's one thing that you kind of have to do around here, considering it's so difficult to overtake at this circuit. You've got to do something in the pit lane, really. You can't just follow what the guys in front are doing, because you're just never going to get through, really. So yeah, expect to see that kind of thing going on when the pit stops do come around in this 72 lap race. At some point we'll see the pit stops are still a good 10 laps away so far, maybe a little bit less, but probably a little bit more than that at this point. Watching Tom Savali just inside of the top 10 for Go Speed, 9th place for him at the moment. Not quite fast enough to catch up to Jonas Braxtor, but also a little bit too quick for Daniel Kish and his teammate Ibrahim Khan just at the moment. So he's in a bit of no man's land in 9th.
We'll see what happens over the course of this race. I think the closest battle that I did catch on the previous couple of laps was actually Lorenz Doherty, who was looking fairly fast, closing in on Ricardo Costa. It got quite close going through Shivlak, and there was no way that his front end was sticking to the tarmac in a particularly positive way, which I think is what we're kind of seeing going to be the theme of the day. Is dependent on where they're going to make their runs. You can't make a run going up into Shivlak unless you're going to get through. Shivlak being turn 8, the one basically the next proper corner after this one, that fast right-hander. Outside of that, you need to be building yourself up and getting closer before we get to Ira Lyondike and over that second half of the lap. And it's all about the build-up to a move around here, not necessarily just the move. It's kind of one of those ones that normally we see a race where they'll get a couple of stabs at it, so they will almost be a little bit more patient with when they try and make their move. Around here, that is not the case. If you get a move put on a platter for you, you go for it.
Yeah, there's no real second choices and no real second chances either, really, here. You just got to try and seize the opportunities as they come. That's when the kind of problems do arise, really. When you've got drivers who know that this is their one and only opportunity to get through, and you do see risks being taken. We're likely not going to see risks really in the first half of this race, but in the last 30 laps or so, we may see a few dicey moves down into turn one, maybe into some of the other corners around this circuit, where it's kind of on, but it's a half chance, and you kind of go for it 100%. That's when the accidents can happen. Let's hope we don't see any of those, but it's the kind of recipe for disaster that you're kind of looking for, really, at this point. When you've got drivers who've been cooked up behind drivers who they think they're faster than for ages, and then they get this one opportunity, it can all fall apart very quickly. But yeah, I think around here, really, turn one is the only realistic opportunity that these guys have. But yeah, as you say, it's just building up to an overtake, because you can't go throwing it down the inside everywhere, as we've mentioned.
We're watching Ibrahim Khan on the back of his teammate. Other teammates that are fairly close in the circuit. David Rodger, who was fairly close to Jonas Simičić, but I'm pretty sure of all of the drivers on the circuit that we're not going to see those two battling it out too hard. It's about working together today. Things that are happening on circuit, though, if you're seeing the top left of your screen, you would be right in thinking that Petter Burliak is closing down on race leader Michi Hoyer as things stand. BS Williams closing down on Burst eSports. Looking like Petter's he backed off to 1.3 seconds roughly. Seems like he's just sort of controlling his tyres in this scenario, and then maybe going to try and apply a bit of an attack later on. I think that's fairly smart, but the thing is in this kind of scenario, I'd almost want to wait even longer on my tyres. I'd want to hold it around 1 second until maybe the final sort of 3 or 4 laps of the stint. We're expecting to see about 20 lap stints here. We know that the fuel tank is supposed to take us to slightly under a third of the race. So it's about 28, 29, 30% roughly where the tank's supposed to go. And with that, we're expecting to see them come in, obviously, at that kind of point in the race. Do you reckon anyone's going to bite early?
Well, I think somebody's going to, but not in these soft tyre stints. These guys are going to go as long as the tyres can take them. That's what we're expecting to be the limiting factor around here. We talk about 20, 21 lap fuel stints around here, but the tyres don't really go that long. And we may see a few laps before that, some soft tyre runners coming in. At the moment, we've got 60 laps to go, so in theory, you could make 3 tanks to the end from here. So somebody might try it and do a longer stint on the softs than you ideally want to, but somebody might go for it. I think what we're more likely to see is in 3 or 4 laps' time, some of these hard tyre runners coming in for a bit of an undercut. Maybe Riccardo Costa's already in. This is still a 3-stop race, by the way. The 4-stoppers aren't likely, well, there aren't likely to be any. This is a bit of a problemo as well, by the way, trying to get out of the box because Jeffrey Fournier has just made his stop just in front of Costa, but those two get out, or are going to get out quite nicely. So the first move's really being made here, but we're still expecting 3 stops from these guys. I'd be really stunned if anybody goes for 4.
I kind of think that was a good move, regardless, from Costa and Fournier, because they were in the midst of this hard tyre battle. They know that if they pit, they're not being dropped into traffic, which is the exact reason why these soft tyre runners cannot pit. Because if they try and pit early, if they try and go for an undercut, whilst an undercut is actually going to be really quite powerful around here, if you do pit early, you're coming out in the middle of traffic. You're coming out in the middle of this sort of like 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th battle where there's just a train of cars that you are never getting through, not in a month of Sundays. And so the whole idea with that is that's why you push it as far as possible. But for some of these drivers that are in the mid-pack in this hard tyre runner, why not pit? Why not try? Because you know you're going to have that clean air. Alex Siebel into the pit lane biting early, one of the drivers that did a 4-stop race back in the Nürburgring, and we were fairly critical in that sense of Alex Siebel's 4-stop race. I wonder if he would have learnt from that. I kind of get the feeling he would. Obviously comes out in 20th position and with a whole host of clean air.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of clean air up to Steve Michaels, who's in 19th place at the moment. Here's Danny van der Neet coming out of the pit lane as well, just behind Riccardo Costa in this pretty tight pit exit as well. We'll talk about that throughout the day. But here are the leaders, going to be unmoved by this, I would suspect, at this stage in the race. No need for those guys to go for an undercut. And like you said a moment ago, you're just going to be in traffic. So there's almost no point whatsoever in those guys pitting early. So they're going to stay out. The other thing for the guys like Riccardo Costa and Alex Siebel, they may well have started their... if I was them, I would start my car full of fuel. But let's not forget, they won't have used all their fuel. So they will have a slightly shorter pit stop because they've got less fuel they've got less space in their tank. So less space and less fuel to put in at this early stage in the race. So they're going to get an undercut, they're going to get new tyres before everybody else, they're going to have softer tyres, and they have a shorter pit stop. I think it's a great call from those guys.
I think so. I think, yeah, I would be in that boat of pitting early, just to, not even for the shorter pit stop, just to get some lovely clean air, because when you're huffing on fumes of the car ahead and the dirty air, that warm stuff, not only is it, obviously you've got less grip, you're overheating the tyres. It's just, it's frustrating as all. So you can gain yourself a cheeky little bit of track position by yourself, and that's where potentially moving yourself deeper into the top 10 is going to come in handy. Just a little bit of a note as to how the pace is looking, as they're pretty risky on the exit curb there of the penultimate corner. Michi Hoyer, last lap time in 11.5. His personal best, or the best lap of the race, was a 10.8. So they're running half a second slower than that. There are some drivers a little bit further down that are starting to personal best now on the hard tyres. So what we're seeing is that gap sort of close, and the hard tyres are actually getting a little bit faster at this stage of the race, and that's why they were building it so aggressively in the early stages.
I have to say that gap, though, is not quite as big as I was expecting. I thought I was expecting 10 seconds more at this early stage in the race, but Dennis Jordan is doing a very good job. And I think this is more of a Dennis Jordan thing than the guys who are on the soft tyres having bad pace. I think Dennis Jordan's just got good pace right now, because just look at the gap he's left behind him. Mohamed Patel is 3 seconds away And, you know, Mohamed Patel isn't exactly driving that badly because Jonas Braxot can't hold his pace. So I think this is a really good performance from Jordan at the moment, setting himself in a very good way to have a good performance and a good result here today in the Dutch Grand Prix. I'd really be on the fence, though, about what tyres I'm going to choose next. Probably another set of hards if I was Dennis Jordan at this stage. But he's certainly going to be running it out to at least, well, I think he wants to run it out to lap 21. But if not, then he'll be in 1 or 2 laps later than Mohamed Patel, just to make sure that he doesn't get undercut.
But yeah, I'm not 100% sure because I get going hard at this point, fair enough, as we're seeing into the pit lane. Jonas Braxot from 8th place, maybe doing what all the other hard tyre runners are doing at the moment. It seems they're running hards for the first stint, coming in and taking a set of softs to try and come back from some of that damage. But to be fair, considering the latter point in the race, as we see another driver go onto the soft tyre of Jonas Braxot from the hards, the hard tyre seems to sort of plateau a little bit when the soft tyres are getting slower and slower. Fastest lap of the race to a shock of absolutely no one, Alex Siebel, as he's just done a 10.7, but now hitting the traffic of Steve Michaels, who's yet to stop on those hard tyres. Jonas Braxot, who was obviously in 8th position, is a little bit of a ways ahead of Alex Siebel. The reason why I point that one out as being fairly important is because Siebel was in 13th place and was trying to get himself up into the top 10. Obviously, someone like Jonas Braxot is basically his goal in that scenario. There we go. There's the move, and that really wasn't fought by Stephen Michaels.
Now, that was about to be a pretty big problem for Alex Siebel, actually, because he would have actually been going slower than his rivals up in front. Here's a replay of how it happened. Presume it's going to be using the wide line. Michaels has really not gone for the best line through that corner. I think he was trying to get out of the way almost of Alex Siebel. Just pulls a little bit wide through these sweepers and certainly didn't put up any fight to the Germans. So Siebel's going to be very thankful for that one. As into the pit lane, Michi Hoyer from the lead of the race. That is a bit of a surprise, but after 16 laps, Michi Hoyer is in, and what he has done is got himself straight into traffic.
Yeah, this was the worry. This was exactly what we were saying. If they're going to pit early, they need to make sure they're coming out in clean air. Now, yes, he has got clean air to Colin Spork. That's all well and good, but that clean air will disappear very, very quickly. Spork's last lap of 12.0, and for the 3-time race winner this season, he's praying that by the time he gets to them, they are all going to be stopping. The fuel tank goes roughly sort of 20, I think it's 20 laps or so, something in that vein, 21 laps. And so basically he's just hoping that they bail from that a little bit earlier. It was a slightly smaller stop from Michi Hoyer, so not maximising the fuel tank. I think it's a 13-second stop normally. Only was in the pit lane for 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's because he didn't quite run this tank out as long as he could have done. We've mentioned it all day, how you can go 20, 21 laps. He didn't quite do that as hard tyres come on for Noah Roivers. He didn't quite do that, did Michi Hoyer, so that's why he's had a slightly shorter pit stop, because he just didn't have the tank to put any more fuel in. He's filled it to the brim once again. He would have started on full fuel, so a slightly shorter stop. That will play into his hands, but the traffic that's in front of him right now, like Colin Spork, Ibrahim Khan, Daniel Kish, etc., all going to be in his way, and they're going to be holding him up a little bit in this one. So it could be a very, very important moment. If Berliak is able to get out in front, then he'll be absolutely delighted, of course. We'll wait and see, though, whether Berliak is actually going quicker than the likes of Spork and Khan at the moment, because those soft tyres are going to be pretty second-hand at this point.
Jonas Braxot, fast lap of the race, a 10.399 as things stand. He's in 13th position, a couple of positions ahead of the driver we were focused on there, Alex Siebel. So that's all well and good. Noah Roivers has come out. Oh, look at this. This is super duper close as going around the outside. Robin Panzer. Wow, that was a fairly solid move through Shevlak. Gets himself to 16th. That one was a bit harder fought from Michaels.
Yeah, I didn't quite see the start of that particular altercation between the two, but it wasn't quite as gentlemanly as the one with Alex Siebel was that we saw a little bit earlier on. Let's have a look at see how this one happened. This is Michi Hoyer on Colin Spork, by the way. Has he already got through, or is he staying behind? Oh, Colin Spork has gone for... Michi Hoyer's gone for a spin. Goodness me, we didn't see that, but Michi Hoyer, in his attempts to get through on Colin Spork, has actually gone for a spin in that one. A few people have come into the pit lane here, releasing him of the traffic. Patel, Spork and Savali are all into the pit lane at this point, and there they go. They're out of the pit lane now as well, but this surely now means that Berliak is going to come out in the lead of this race. So Hoyer might even be behind Simoncic and Rocek here, depending on how much the undercut is working for her. I think he's going to be out ahead of those guys, but Burliak is probably going to have the lead here.
I thought Satherley had retired then because his pit box was
same.
a very odd place past the Armco barrier on the exit of pit lane. Let's see what happens with this lot. Are they coming into the pit lane? Yes, they certainly are. Petr Burliak into the pit lane from the race lead, as does Jene Simoncic, but Davin Rodger says no thank you. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to take the lead of the race at least for now. Oh, it's tight. Oh, there's contact. Jene Simoncic, what are you doing, son? What are you doing? That was careless. Yeah, he's stuck. I think he might be sharing the same box as Petr Burliak. Did he pull into the same one? They are sharing a box. Not sure how that is possible, but regardless, that was pretty careless. And there's Michi Hoyer, who's managed to stay ahead of Petr Burliak.
He's just about done it. I can't believe the undercut is that powerful that you can afford to have a spin and still get through. I wonder if Burliak changed his strategy there to go onto the hard tyres instead of the softs like he would have done normally, in the expectation that he was going to get out ahead of Michi Hoyer so that he could hold him up through this entire stint, but he hasn't managed to do that, and now he's just going to see his race rival go away from him. Let's get a replay of this moment. Jene Simoncic now in the pit lane. This is him coming in, so we're going to get a view on board now, trying to get into his pit box, but it looks like, you're right, I think he is sharing a pit box with Petr Burliak, which is not supposed to happen, very rare and also very unfortunate as well.
I get what he's trying to do there, because he's trying to do this classic rFactor thing. I don't know how much you've seen it, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's theoretically possible to pit two people in the same box as long as there's enough room. You can kind of clip onto the side of it effectively, and you can have your pit stop done. What he's done there, though, is he's hit himself. I don't know how long his pit stop was, but I'm pretty sure it was quite long. Davin Rodger's come into the pit lane then, as has Danny Kish, Dennis Jordan, Lorenz Doherty as well. Look at how late Danny Kish's boxes. That's why this is a bit of a shock to see them share, because there is plenty of boxes continuing on down that end of the pit lane.
Yeah, he's getting serviced by the marshals there, is Danny Kish. I don't know what that's all about, but anyway, he's getting his tyres and his fuel, we can assure you. And that's all fine. So Simoncic now is down in 9th place. He's behind Alex Siebel, for goodness sake. This is a disaster for the reigning champion. Oh, that's a very good point as well, because don't forget, he hit the side of Burliak. He hit the what do you call it? The garage kind of wall thing that he's reversed into. I don't even know what it's called. It's so rare to see that. You just never see that, especially from Simoncic. But anyway, he's had to repair a bit of damage, presumably, and he's all the way down in 9th position. It is going to be an extremely long evening for him now, and he's going to have to do a lot more overtaking than he had planned tonight.
Yeah, second consecutive Dutch Grand Prix not working out for the Slovenian. Jene Simoncic, yes, 9th position as things stand. Just behind him, Robin Panzar will be closing up after that fantastic move on Michaels. Ricardo Costa has joined Fletcher as a retirement from this race. Is Jene Simoncic going to be able to make a move here? And Alex Siebel, the inside, has covered off from Siebel, the German, but it's just about enough. Siebel comes back down across Simoncic. He found that gap. I'm pretty sure that Siebel started opening it up and then covered it back off again. Not 100%, but it did seem like how that looked.
Well, he certainly went to defend straight away off of the final corner hit. We'll get a better view now, and off board as well, on board with Siebel now. Let's see. So he does defend initially, yes, and then I think he just thinks that Simoncic is going to go to the outside line, so he drifts slightly to the middle of the road.
Yeah, moving back across.
Allows that car length to open up to Simoncic, and then he slightly comes down again on Simoncic. So yeah, that is kind of a closing of the door there from Siebel. He wasn't really expecting him to try and jam his car down the inside there, but there was room. I initially thought that was Simoncic's fault, actually, but no, there was room. He stuck his car in it. Very decisive manoeuvre there from Simoncic. You can tell he's got the pace. Getting through on Siebel straight away there. I know he's got newer tyres at this stage in the race, ever so slightly, but still, he's got great pace right now, and he's going to have to do a lot of overtaking. Wasn't waiting around, certainly, just then.
It was a decisive move, the same sort of sense that we saw down at T1 at the Nürburgring on one of the HME cars last week. 3-1 in last minute. For me, I like Siebel a lot, of course, but that was a little bit too naughty.
Satherley.
We heard Satherley is out, and it might be at the last corner So another retirement. Not sure what happened to Ricardo Costa in all of that as well, because obviously he is out of the race. But yeah, for Siebel, might be a little bit of a slap on the wrist. The interesting thing there is that Siebel and Simoncic, of course, were teammates yesterday, as they are teammates in other championships. So, a little bit spicy and dicey.
Well, yeah, Simoncic didn't actually race yesterday alongside Siebel and Jordan. He was not racing, it was just Jordan and Siebel in the VC. So, Simoncic wasn't involved. However, yeah, you're right, they are teammates. Another thing, I can't look at that curb in the same way again, I'm sorry. Ever since we saw Fletcher, it was going flying into the air there, I can't quite look at that last corner curb in the same way anymore. But Braxock's about to have a lot of... Well, I say that. I was about to say he's about to have a lot of defending to do, but Mohamed Patel's catching him, despite the fact that Braxock's on soft tyres, Patel's on the hards, and there's really not much pace difference between them. Likewise with Hoyer and Berliak. I'm not sure if just Berliak's got really good pace on the hards, Hoyer's got bad pace on the softs. I don't know what's going on with that one really, but those two are remaining remarkably close throughout this stint. I really wasn't expecting that.
This is the same as it was in the first stint. If you actually go and look at it, the times for the soft tyre runners, it's great for like 2 or 3 laps. And then it just drops off and it sort of heads down to where the hard tyres pace is. And this is why I was kind of wondering if with someone like Dennis Jordan or these kind of drivers who took hards at the early part of the race, if they were going to go straight onto hards for their second stint, as did Mohamed Patel did actually do that, as did Danny Kish, Ibrahim Khan, and Michaels. Because the hard tyres quite good, to be fair, through the mid part of the stint, and we're seeing that. The soft tyres drop off fairly quickly, then they sort of plateau, and then they drop off again towards the end of the stint. And the hard tyres are fairly stable and predictable, and I think that's why we're seeing this gap come back down. The question is who's going to bat first in this scenario? Because, I mean, you'd say Michi Hoyer in the sense that he batted early. Simoncic off again.
Yeah, he's trying to get through on Noah Roivers this time, trying to make his way through the traffic, and this is hard tyre traffic as well, by the way. Let's see how it happened. He did go to the outside, but I don't quite know what happened after that. Let's see. Roivers defending very hard, not making the same mistake that Siebel did, and only goes to the outside line when Simoncic does. A little bit of side-to-side contact between them. I wouldn't say that either of them are really at fault for that, just a bit of contact racing incident between the two.
Roivers, when he came back up to the left-hand side of the circuit for him, he left more than enough of a car width. There was a little bit of contact, and I think that might be a touch. Like, maybe try not to push it that far, but obviously the way you're going to take Tarzan T1 is you're swinging it out and you're coming back in for that final apex. I don't think... I'm going to say both as you. I don't think anything was realistically wrong there. It's just two drivers fighting very hard for a position, and it will continue to do so. Mr. Simoncic is on quite a mission after that pit lane incident between himself and Petr Berliak. Let's see if he can make the move this time. To the outside, he's going to try and make it stick at Tarzan once again. Less of a swoop up to the left-hand side from Noah Roivers. Still hanging it around. Jerne Simoncic is going to have to make this stick at 3. Noah Roivers gives him the room, and the position is complete. That was a pretty tasty move indeed.
Yeah, it definitely was. We know that this circuit is hard to overtake at, but turn 1 is your opportunity. Simoncic is making good use of that so far, this time around the outside, and it was very impressive. I think going into turn 3 there, those guys still side by side. I think Roivers kind of gave it up a little bit and kind of let Simoncic through, knowing that if he battles too much now, and they go side by side a little bit too much, he's actually going to start to hurt his own race. So he just lets the two-time champion go. And I'm afraid he's going to be looking in his mirrors once again here in a moment, because Alex Siebel's not too far behind.
Closing in on this, obviously on those soft tyres. Noah Roivers' pace seems to have... I say it seemed to have dropped off. All things considered, he's just been passed by Jerne Simoncic, and that would be why his pace has dropped off, because Simoncic is looking so fast at the moment. The fastest driver in the race at the moment, I was going to say inside the top 10, but it is in the race in its entirety, is the driver in 4th place. Already ticked off a hard tyre set. Dennis Jordan closing in on the podium. This is looking like it's going to be yet another good drive from Dennis Jordan. Qualified in 6th place, took hards over that first stint, now closing back up. And all things considered, he seems to very much like this track.
Yeah, he definitely does. He won here last year, let's not forget, and he does seem inordinately good around here. For whatever reason, he just seems to hook up around it. I don't know if he's a particular fan of this circuit, whether he really likes it to drive it, or really what's going on with that. But yeah, he just seems to be incredibly pacey. Darren Mochik is closing on the front two ever so slightly. When they came out of the pit lane, the gap between himself and Petter Bernat was 3.5 seconds. It's now down to just over 2 at its lowest point. But yeah, Dennis Jordan is catching the whole top 3 right now, so it's all kind of concertinaing together quite nicely. Unfortunately, Simic is not involved in that fight. He was previously, obviously, but not anymore. So we would have had a 5-car real crash up, not crash up, but kind of very close together, is what I meant, throughout this stage of the race. We don't quite have that, but we do have 4 very competitive cars in a very competitive position with 28 laps nearly run.
We'll be fastly approaching the second pit stop for some of these drivers. A little bit of a reminder on the first stint of the race, although I would expect he's going to go a bit longer. Race leader Michi Hoyer, who's currently on our screen, he went for 16 laps. I would suspect he's going to push it a touch further than that, maybe up to somewhere the likes of 18 or so, and then go on to what I would expect to be hard tyres, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. That seemed to be fair, almost the favourable race tyre in this scenario. Yeah, I'm expecting him to pit in sort of like 7 or 8 laps. Petter Berliak, though, obviously he pushed his stint quite a lot further. He went to 19 laps. And I think that those 3 laps is kind of what allowed Hoyer to even come back after that spin. Jeffrey Fournier out of the race to make it 4 retirements.
Yeah, unfortunately, we saw a lot of attrition last week, actually, and I think we're going to see a similar thing here today. Not even halfway through this race just yet, but already 4 retirements, 2 confirmed crashes, with Savelli and Fletcher both having damage and retiring. Not sure what happened to Costa earlier on, but Fournier definitely was a retirement in the pit lane. So both Epic Racing cars are out after only 28 laps of the day, and I'm afraid Epic Racing still haven't scored a single point this season. It's not been the greatest start in the world. They're not alone, having scored no points, but still, they would have liked to at least have won by now.
Yeah, the return to the FSR World Championship for Ricardo Costa and Jeffrey Fournier doesn't seem to have greeted them so kindly as they had back in the season they did, of course, 2019. I think they were driving for HME or Miller that year, and decent. There was the odd decent race splashed in there, but realistically, not the ideal one as they've moved over to Epic. We're on board with Ibrahim Khan, Thomas Vack, who's directly ahead. Obviously, hard tyre runner at the moment of Khan, and the time's coming in a 12.2 and a 12.1 for the car ahead. Everyone's kind of plateaued on this pace outside of it, and the problem is with them running sort of 12s and stuff, everyone sort of in the top 10 running mid-11s, the points are going to be slipping further and further away.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Khan has lost all this time, really, or where he's lost it, because he was right behind his teammate Danny Kish a little bit earlier on, in the kind of same grouping as him. But now he's stuck behind, well, not stuck behind, but he is behind Thomas Vack down in 15th and a good 7-8 seconds behind his teammate. And I don't know quite where that time loss all happened, but he's going to be a little bit disappointed with how it's gone so far. Although points not out of the question. Points not out of the question for most of the top 17, I would say, at this point. You know, guys like Zooks, Parisis, Michaels, maybe too far back for those guys at this point. But, you know, Danny Van Der Neet is not too far away from points, and he might be able to scrape some by the end.
I think for some of these drivers, the points are going to be a bit of a stretch. Danny Kish, you say 7 seconds off of Panzer. That'll be a large concern to see a gap that large before even the halfway point of the race. And it's about finding ways to surmount that challenge, and some ways to come up on top of it. Oh, Brackshock and Patel into the pit lane. I thought they were out of the race. I'm looking at my lifetime. Panic there. Early stops, though, for them.
A little bit, the very earliest you can do, actually. So it's going to be 21 lap stints for those guys to the end. The very maximum you can do on these tanks of fuel. Where are they going to come out, though? Is it going to be a good traffic management for them? I think it's going to be pretty decent, actually. They're just behind Luca Di Melio, but if they can clear him, then they've got a good 5 seconds up in front, both out on the soft tyres. Mattel and Braxop, they're going to gain some time on those around them, like Noah Roivers, etc. And so it's going to be some long stints towards the end of this race. However, they're going to be able to reap the benefits of the undercut right now with some relatively clean air. Only one car to negotiate.
Walks on the back of Danny Kish, and Dennis Jordan's been closing in on David Rodger as well. We're focusing in on Edge eSports' recruit into the FSR World Championship, Colin Spork. He's not new to open wheelers. He's not a rookie in open wheelers. He's done his fair share of racing in open wheelers. Let's just say that. Elsewhere on rFactor 2, moving over to the FSR World Championship and making his debut. Qualified in 10th place, currently within the points, of course, courtesy of other people's pit stops and stuff. I think still things are looking fairly decent for Edge eSports' Colin Spork. Less so for Jim Paresis, who qualified down the order courtesy of qualifying on the hard compound of tyre. Still down there, 19th position for the Greek. That'll be a bit harsh.
Yeah, certainly not quite the result he wanted today. I believe he has managed to pick up some points so far this season, though. Paresis managed 8th place back in Imola, and Luke McGuire, who is the driver that I've forgotten his name. Colin Spork is replacing here today. Luke McGuire did score some points at Portugal as well. So those guys haven't had the worst start to the season for Edge eSports, but it's certainly not the heights of last season where they had Peter Berliak driving for them and obviously making a championship charge. That really helped them, and the teams gathered a lot of points in the team's championship last season. But they're not quite reaching those heights just for the moment. Although Spork is looking pretty good for at least some low-end points here today, as we look at Dennis Jordan closing on David Mosik and Mohamed Patel and James Brackstruck closing on Luca D'Amelio. This is very important. These guys just come out of the pit lane. They need to make use of their undercut, so they need to get through right now.
Yeah, see if the Italian comes into the pit lane this lap and makes it an easy move for them. Where is he going to go? He is not going to make it an easy move, but he is going to stick to the left-hand side of the circuit. And basically, well, it is going to be an easy move, all things considered, because Patel gets the apex at Tarzan, and the move is complete. Luca D'Amelio did not fight that one at all and let Mohamed Patel through. Janis Brackstruck will be the next one to try and get to him. Alex Siebel in the pit lane as he departs it with Danny Van Der Neet, who I can confirm is birthday boy today, 29 years of age.
I'm sure he's delighted you've just publicised that with everybody. But yeah, anyway. Not having the greatest race, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, but still good to be out there and with a nice livery as well. I have to say, I am enjoying seeing the livery out there, especially knowing the meaning behind it as well. It's going to be an emotional day for everybody at NetRex GP. Mitchy Hoyer into the pit lane here with 33 laps complete. This is almost the earliest you can pit, and he's forced to go onto the hard tyres at this point. How long is this stop going to be? Is it going to be short, or is it going to be a normal stop? It is going to be normal at 13 seconds, so we have to presume at this point he is going for that 3-stop race. Hard tyres for him at this point, though, and once again making sure he's on the undercut. Hopefully for him, though, this outlap, this opening few laps of this stint is a little bit more successful than the last pit stops were.
Yeah, going for a full stint here. Obviously, that 13-second timer to give him a full tank. Hard tyres. We've got some battling here. Oh, Doherty and Khan coming together. It is touring car racing here at the dunes, and that is not exactly ideal. But there is Ibrahim Khan picking it up to the inside and the banking. That looked a little bit messy. I think we might need to take a replay of that one.
Yeah, we might well get a look at that one once again. But Doherty is let's not forget, on the soft tyres right now, trying to make up some ground while he can. Here we go. Oh, it's a late dive to the inside, but there was space there. Very even on the way in, bit of contact. Then oversteer for Doherty has kind of put him into Khan and then squeezed him a little bit on the exit. Khan really couldn't defend through turn 3 there. And when you're forced to the inside of turn 4, that looks horrid to drive down the inside of turn 4. You really need to be up very high. Because if down low like that, Khan just demonstrated it to us. The cars look like they drive absolutely awfully down the bottom there.
This is the banking falls away. Oh, there's someone. That's another one.
Hoyer.
That's Mitchy Hoyer. That is Mitchy Hoyer, our championship leader, 3-time race winner. And I mean, I'm pretty sure we can take a guess at what that one was. Luca D'Amelio into the pit lane with no front wing. I'm assuming that he's going to have made contact with Hoyer. What has happened?
Well, let's have a look. It was through the final corner, and we've seen a lot of drama at this portion of the racetrack before.
Yeah.
He's massively gone into the air. Oh my goodness me, I've not seen a crash quite like it for a very long time. Look at D'Amelio. How did he lose a front wing? Because this was a totally different issue. He's on some debris. He's got kicked up into the air. He's gone into the outside wall, and Luca D'Amelio has no front wing. Mitchy Hoyer out of this race. After having such a good start to the season, the momentum of the German will also be broken, and he'll also take big damage in the points today.
Yeah, that is a horrific shame. And there's a bit of a slide again from Danny van der Neeten. He's going to get to the inside, and there's another one in the barrier. There's a wheel gone. Bye-bye and see ya. And the retirement list gets bigger and bigger. Jim Paresis also out of the race.
Yeah, he is. Didn't see what happened to him just for the moment either. But Dennis Jordan out of the pit lane right now. He's on hard tyres and just gets out ahead of Colin Spork, although Spork hasn't made his pit stop just for a moment. Neither has Danny Kish, but he's made sure, as Dennis Jordan, that he's got out in front of Mohamed Patel and Jens Brakshack, who were threatening him for a moment on their undercut, but nothing really doing in the end. So Jordan is now out in 4th place. I believe, though, that the top 3 still have to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, they certainly do. 16 laps into a stint for Petr Berliak. David Marocek, 15 laps into a stint and 16 laps into his soft tyre run of Jerne Simoncic. We'll wait for them to enter the pit lane. Dennis Jordan, our current focus on the screen, now out on the hard compound tyre as Marocek is into the pit lane. Let's see what happens with his pit stop. I'm actually pretty sure that my time might be wrong, but so Simoncic... Oh, no, Simoncic was recovered from that damage, wasn't he? I was going to say I think he might have been in, but no, for that damage earlier, he comes into the pit lane now.
Does indeed, following his not quite teammate, but also Burst Esport driver. As we'll see what tyres they both put on. Marocek's putting on hards at this point. He has to, because he's had 2 sets of... he hasn't used hards all weekend so far, so he's putting on them now. And what's Simoncic putting on? We'll find out as he leaves the pit lane just in a moment. Colin Spork's also in. It's hard tyres for Simoncic as well. I believe he had to, actually. I don't know why I was thinking about that, because he's also put 2 soft tyres on so far. He needs to put some hards on now. Just comes out behind Ibrahim Khan and ahead of Alex Siebel as Colin Spork leaves the pit lane now.
Well, it might have been a long stop from Colin Spork, but no, it seemed all right at the end. I wonder if we got a light brush of damage from something somewhere. Noah Roivers now on the screen. Lorenz Doherty ahead. I said earlier in the broadcast, was hoping that Lorenz Doherty was going to go a little bit further this race than he did at the same time last year, because did actually do the 2020 Dutch Grand Prix, retired on lap 1 that day, did Doherty. He's got Noah Roivers behind him, who's looking pretty tasty for a pass soon. I think it might happen down the front end of the circuit, down into turn 1. It seems like the ideal move.
Khan has gone for a spin coming out of turn 10, I think that is. Turn 11. It just looks like he'd lost it on the power. And what was looking like a good result for Khan is all of a sudden not looking like such a good result because of that spin. As Doherty is into the pit lane, Roivers is going to be easily through. But yeah, hopefully we can get a replay in a moment to see what happened to Ibrahim Khan, and here it is.
Yeah, I think you might be ideal. It might be on the curbing on the exit. He's on the hard tyre, so not too much grip. No, it is just throttle and away he goes. Oh, gets out of the barrier. That was...
he's lost his front wing. He thought he could get out, but he's lost his front wing trying to get out. That's not the best driving I've ever seen from Ibrahim Khan. He's into the pit lane now. Dear me.
I don't mean to laugh, but that will be clipped, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that will be clipped, yeah. And that not only repairing his front wing there, repairing his dignity a little bit as well, I'm afraid. As Jim Paresis, we're about to find out what happened to him here into turn 1. He's out of the race now, so braking on the grass is not advised. He goes wide into the gravel and goes for a spin. I wonder if this is just going to be a retirement from this point. Gets off the road. Oh, no. And that's going to be a retirement for him.
I thought he was going to do an Ibrahim Khan, just flat out and go straight into the barrier. Did not, but I think he was trying to go for a flick spin and ended up just deeper in the gravel, which is quite thick and bumpy out here. And yeah, out of the race. So yet another retirement. We're up to 7 retirements in the race. And so... all things considered, the last, by the way, here's a stat for you. The last 2 races rather, in the season, they've both had 7 retirements. Actually, no, to be fair, Portugal had 8. It was just disqualification that also went the way of Mohamed Patel, so tell a lie. It was 8-7. We're at 7 today. Are we going to increase this? I remember back to the 2019 German Grand Prix where we only had 10 finishers when we got to the checker flag at Hockenheim. It wasn't ideal that day.
No, not ideal today either, really, with the way that cars have been kind of spearing off all over the place and into walls and all sorts of things. So, yeah, hopefully we get more than 10 get to the line today. But, you know, we're 39 laps in, just about to cross that point now. And 7 retirements already. I think that is Ibrahim Khan, actually, just in front of the leader, Petr Burliak, right now. So we're over half distance in this race. Petr Burliak now is on his second set of hard compound tyres. Mrocek Mrocek's on his first. Jordan's on his second. So Jordan's going to be quite spicy towards the end of this race, but I think Burliak is in prime position right now to win the Dutch Grand Prix. Still a long way to go, though.
And the thing is, any race engineers to these drivers will be warning them galore to not go anywhere near the curb on the run into Ari Lyondike, because we know that exit curb bites, and some of the drivers will know that bites, obviously from racing and stuff and all practice and what they've done. Obviously, they might have seen a couple go off there. I'm sure Luca D'Amelio is very aware of it. They'll all be warned of it now, and so they'll be told to just stay away from it, and let's just hope that everyone adheres to that. Mohamed Patel trying to apply pressure, Dennis Jordan. Janis Brakshock, though, is very, very close to Danny Kish in the background. I think he might try something down to turn 1 on the Zancho SimSport driver, who now finds himself up in 5th place. He's got the soft tyre runner of Brakshock directly behind.
Yeah, going to be doing a bit of defending, you'd imagine, but Brakshock's going to want to get through as quickly as possible. Might actually do it straight away now, because Danny Kish is into the pit lane, the final man, I believe, in this cycle now to come in, and he's going to pit an awfully long way down the box, as you can see, almost at pit exit where the Armco is there. He's stopping and getting service, so he's going to be outside of the top 10, briefly behind Robin Panzar, but look at all the free air he is going to get. 10th place for him at the moment. That might be his limit in this one. He's going to be battling with Colin Spork for that final points-paying position. So we'll see who prevails out of the two of them. Spork goes around the outside at turn 1. Kiss leaving the pit lane now, and in the end it's Spork who comes out on top, just ever so slightly.
That pit exit white line is incredibly long. You end up having to stay to the right-hand side. You can't swoop out onto the racetrack naturally because it's dangerous. And so that run on the inside that you're basically delayed quite a lot. And so the outside run of turn 1 is fairly potent for those that are obviously out on the racetrack. And so the advantage, the way of Colin Spork at present, but now the fresher, hard tyres of Danny Kish. And you can see already the fairly well-experienced World Championship driver now starting to attack things and already seems to have some fairly decent pace. Also does Mohamed Patel, who's on the back of Dennis Jordan, a 3-way fight for what is currently the runner-up position in the Grand Prix. As things stand, Mrocek coming under an awful lot of pressure.
Yeah, he is indeed. So he's going to be doing some more. I feel like I'm saying that a lot at this point, but you know, we're seeing that a lot at points in the race at the moment, not least with this battle between Colin Spork and Danny Kish. It looks like these two fairly evenly matched though, and that fight is going to rage on through the final 30 laps of this race. Mohamed Patel though is putting in a good drive here today. He's not had the best season so far as the 2017 World Champion. Actually got disqualified from the Portuguese Grand Prix because he was believed to be the cause of the Turn 1 incident that I'm sure you all remember if you were tuned in. And so we were kind of wondering how all of the HM Engineering cars managed to hit each other. Well, the stewards judged that to be Mohamed Patel's fault, I'm afraid, so he was disqualified from that race, but he's having a much better attempt at it this time around. And yeah, it's going to be solid points for him whichever way this one goes, and it's looking pretty good for a podium as well.
Remember how he ended last season was very, very impressive in the latter stages. Did 5 races at the end of 2020, 4 of which ended up on the podium, one of those being a race victory in the final race of the season. Came into 2021 with fairly high hopes and hasn't really sort of jumped on it. All things considered, finished 7th in the first race of the season, didn't score points in the 2 races that followed, naturally come from that disqualification, and then was 13th on the racetrack back at the German Grand Prix just a week ago, looking to bounce back from that. Yeah, maybe just not gelling with this 2021 car, and a season which seems to have some fairly high drama, as we have seen already. I wouldn't rule anyone out of the championship just yet.
Now we're seeing a really mixed, I don't say mixed up order today, but people who are up the front right now haven't really been up the front so far this season. Petr Bělek's had a podium, but no real signs of his 2015 performances. Mohamed Patel is into the pit lane now with 28 laps to go. That's too far to go to the end of the race, so we are seeing a 4-stop race for Mohamed Patel. This is very, very interesting then. Soft tyres for him, and wow, I wasn't expecting this whatsoever. I thought actually he stood a better chance of getting a podium sticking behind Jordan and doing the normal strategy, but clearly he thinks he can overtake the cars quick enough and have enough pace to get through all of these guys and get back to the podium once again. We'll wait and find out, but it's a tall order in front of him right now.
Already done both of his hard stints. Remember, he qualified in about 6th, 7th position. Already ticked off those hard tyres as we're seeing Danny Kish, Colin Spork battle it out. And Danny Kish is now ahead of Spork. Missed that move down at turn 1. We'll catch it on a replay in just a moment. But Sancho SimSport marching their way forward. Let's take a look at how the move was completed down into Tarzan. Danny Kish, you're on board with.
Yeah, leaves the door open to Spork actually. Defends late on, but leaves enough space for Kish to go down the inside. He wasn't passing up that opportunity, was he? Really sent it into the corner, and there was a bit of contact made, but I think that was all fair in the end. It was just robust overtaking there from Danny Kish. Nothing wrong with it though, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm not so sure. I think he was... I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't fully overdoing the corner, but I don't like it when a driver is going into a corner and they're really like way too much committed, that they are miles away from the apex. There was contact on the exit that was instigated from Danny Kish, and that was how the move was completed. So, in my money, not a legal move, but we'll see how that one's viewed by whoever later on. Our focus on the battle for 11th position. I'm not saying they should get a penalty, maybe a warning at best, but just saying. I think there might be some further looking into that. Doherty not able to pass Spork at T1. Has he got to take hard tyres again? Yes, he does. Doherty does, and Colin Spork is on his final set of hards.
Yeah, the way that's kind of shaping up at the moment, it does mean that he's looking in a decent place to actually get on that final point, although it's going to be a good fight between Kish, Spork, Doherty. Maybe Thomas Vack can get involved as well, but they're all involved in that kind of battle for the final points paying position in this race. We're watching Darren Mocek versus Dennis Jordan at the moment, and Yanis Brakstok is into the pit lane. We saw Brakstok and Patel come in very similar times. I thought they were going to do 2 21-lap stints to go to the end. They've realised that was a push on soft tyres, so they're going for the 4-stop race in this one. I think they're the only two people who are going to do so. They're really going to provide the entertainment for us in this one, but whether it's going to reap any kind of result for them remains to be seen.
HME have had a little bit of a dramatic few days. Of course, they've lost Harley Amnett from the team, who's departed to focus on life and such. And the team sort of, I'm not saying it's falling apart, but in a sense, with considering what's happened on the iRacing side of things with them, where things have fallen apart a little bit, and how things are here, there was quite a lot of fire after the previous round inside the team, and focusing on this, it's not the ideal scenario and ideal prep work for HME. They've even lost a driver in the GT Pro Championship on rFactor on being Ferris Stanley, as Steve Michaels gets out of the way. We're riding on board with Mohamed Patel. Yeah, not ideal for HME. Either way, hopefully they'll put on a good display today, because all things considered, with the latter run into the race, we could be seeing some spicy, dicey moves before the checker flag is flown in a fair few laps. Still 25 laps to run in the Dutch Grand Prix. Doherty and Spork still fairly close in the racetrack. Those are the ones that are closest, but there are drivers starting to fire in some decent lap times, one of those being Mohamed Patel, who did a 10.699 on the previous lap. Do you want to talk about Danny Kish for a second? Blah, 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 Zanto bias, etc., whatever, you talk about it. Hard tyre. 3 sets of hards.
Yeah, that's something that we haven't seen all season, is it? Well, I don't think we've seen that all season anyway, because normally you wouldn't go for hards for any longer than you need to, because they're a little bit worse than the soft, but maybe the tyre wear is so bad around here that actually he's much more comfortable making these first 3 stints on the hards, so that he can get himself into a window where he knows he can make it to the end on softs. If you think about your two, so if you do 2 21-lap stints on your hards, you've done 42 laps, you've got 30 laps remaining, but if you don't think that you can do 15 laps 2 times on a set of soft tyres, which Kish, I'm presuming, doesn't think he can do, then just put another set of hards on, go a little bit further, and then you can avoid doing a 4-stop like Patel and Braxok have done, but you might be a little bit slower. It seems to be working out pretty well for him at the moment, because he is hanging on to this point and driving away from Colin Spork at the moment, so it can't be going too badly for him.
No, indeed, we're focused on that battle with Spork now behind, and Doherty half a second back, wondering when these drivers will come in for their final stop. We're approaching that final window. Doherty's looking, but more so in a sense of applying pressure and no potential way through at the moment. Janis Braxok, fastest lap of the race, a 10.3. That is exceptionally fast, as we would expect from the Hungarian, that pole sitter from the previous race at the German Grand Prix. Didn't manage to get a victory that day. Still the first victory for his World Championship career eludes him, but he was very, very consistent over last season, finishing the top 10 in 9 of the 10 races. Did Braxok behind this. I wouldn't say that a win is beyond him this season. After we finish today, we're a third of the way in, so there's still 8 races to go. I reckon one of those could have Braxok's name on it. Patel looking for a move on Panzer.
Yeah, big slipstream going down towards turn 1. Panzer keeps it to the left-hand side, doesn't really fight, although I'll say that, he hangs it round the outside, clearly thinks that was the better chance of him trying to stay in front, but Patel slides his way down the inside, gets himself through into 7th place, and next up is Alex Siebel, just 2.5 seconds up the road. I believe Siebel's going to be putting on softs on towards the end of this race though, so Patel might start finding this a little bit more difficult as he goes up the order.
It's an interesting strategy. It's something a bit bold, a bit risky, something a bit different. But yeah, he's. I mean, I'm not 100% convinced by it myself. We'll have to wait and see.
Lawrence Doherty, by the way, through turn 1, has recently gone for a spin or some kind of problem, because he's down to 13th now and a good 8-9 seconds behind Colin Spork, who he was battling with. I wonder if these two have come into contact. Into turn 1 they go. Sport goes for a kind of late defensive once again. Doherty down the inside, but just rotates the car so slightly.
Ooh.
Don't quite know whose fault. Oh, he nearly gets into his teammate Thomas Falk there, but don't quite know whose fault that was really. Whether Spork squeezed a little bit too much, or Doherty got on the curb and spun the car, or what really happened there. But either way, he's gone round and he's down to 13th.
I don't think it was the curb. I think there was like contact between the two. The only way to judge that one properly is by onboards and then looking through Swingman when you're a race steward, because it makes life a lot easier and you can see a very clear picture. Not that I enjoy the idea of seeing Swingman on broadcast and whatnot. I like to do it the old-fashioned way, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure if there was contact. I'm pretty sure that Spork was giving enough room all the way around. Certainly looked like his trajectory was that of plenty of room to the inside, but kind of if you're on the inside where the banking is, obviously the banking higher up is steeper, and so when you're running in at that kind of speed and that line you're used to taking, yes, you've maybe brake to the same point or even a little bit earlier, but the way you are when you're holding that tighter line, the front end just sort of sweeps up the racetrack in this fairly almost unnatural way, and so I think that's kind of what made them brush into each other, and then for a spin. Kind of one of those things at the moment. We'll have to wait and see. Only one burst driver on the podium at present, and that is David Marocek, who is currently holding off Dennis Jordan. Good drive from David Marocek so far. Has a 9th and a 5th place finish to his name. Retired the first race of the season at the San Marino Grand Prix. Looking to grab himself a podium today, and certainly seems to have the pace for it.
Yeah, certainly. He's really a very solid driver, really, and kind of what Burst Esport need in terms of getting the championship. I believe he was part of the winning team in 2020, alongside Simoncic. I think was it Simoncic who was on the winning team? Or Hoyer, sorry, yeah. But either way, Mocek was on that winning team because he's just a really solid driver. Will get you points most days of the week, and he's definitely going to do that today. All things go well. I think he's going to continue to do that throughout the season. Whether he can hold on to second ahead of Dennis Jordan is another issue, as Dennis Jordan comes into the pit lane. Lawrence Doherty is out of the race, you're right, down there. 8th retirement for him, I'm afraid, but Jordan now in 21 laps to go. This is the earliest you can go and to get to the end, but he's put softs on, so is he going? Surely this will be too late for making a 4-stop race, so he is going to try and go 21 laps on softs, which isn't advised, but it's possible.
Well, his teammate Alex Siebel did 20 laps on these soft tyres early and managed to hold on through all of that running. Comes out in 9th place, does Dennis Jordan. What he's trying to do here is he's trying to go for effectively a bit of an undercut, and he'll defend later on. We know that this circuit is very, very difficult to pass at. I'm kind of liking this move to try and get ahead of Rodger. I'm not sure he's aiming for a victory in this sense. He's aiming for second. He's aiming to get ahead of Rodger. He's aiming for the podium. In the best possible position that he can get. I like that idea because it's just, basically get to that position and then make Rodger have to fight for it. He couldn't fight his way through, could Dennis Jordan and Rodger. Rodger instantly bites on that. He's come into the pit lane. Is one lap enough? He's been in clean air, has Dennis Jordan. Is it enough though?
Well, yeah, that's the million-dollar question, really, but Mocek has to do this. He had absolutely no other choice, and he has to get out in front of Dennis Jordan as well. If Jordan gets in front on those soft tyres, I think he's going to be very difficult to catch again. Siebel's into the pit lane likewise, but here's his teammate at 4 Evolution Motorsports, Dennis Jordan, coming down the front straight right now. You're going to see Mocek on the other side of the wall, on the other side there, and you can see on the right-hand side he's got through, or rather stayed in front. I'm a bit surprised by that, I have to say. A very good in-lap from David Mocek there. It's just 120-lap defending kind of challenge for him right now to try and keep Dennis Jordan behind. He's going to have a little bit of traffic in front of him, but that's going to clear before he gets there. So Mocek versus Jordan is going to be the battle for second place in this race. And Mocek's done a fantastic job there to hold on. I thought he was going to lose the place, but he's held on with flying colours.
Tyre differential between the two, of course, soft runner for Dennis Jordan and hards for David Rodger. But we know that it's the soft tyres over the first couple of laps of the stint are the ones that make the difference. After that point, the advantage is dissipated. Thomas Vack and Luca Di Melio into the pit lane. Alex Siebel out in 11th position, awaiting the next few drivers to enter the pit lane for the final time. 18 laps to go in the Dutch Grand Prix. Race leader at the moment, Peter Berliak from Jene Simoncic and Mohamed Patel at the moment. 2 BS drivers on the podium. And I know, seeing them in chat earlier, and I know Florian has kept a little bit of an eye on the series. Florian Hasper, the team manager of BS competition, kept an eye on the basically what all the drivers are doing all over the place. They're a team that enter in iRacing and rFactor 2 over in ACC. They race everywhere, of course, being quite a busy outfit, all growing and all that such. They'll be pretty happy with first and third at the moment. Naturally, I don't think it's going to end first and third because Patel's going to have to do a fair amount of work on his final pit stop, which he is still yet to do 10 laps into this stint. But Berliak, he's looking pretty set at the moment because his pace, his performance, his consistency is pretty relentless right now.
Yeah, he's looking absolutely fantastic with a 21-second lead right now. That's going to change, of course. It was about 6 seconds before the pit stops here. With Dennis Jordan and with David Mocek, so that is going to change and reduce slightly, but I think Berliak is looking very, very good to come out in the lead, and he's got soft tyres to put on towards the end as well. That's why he's running it so long. Doesn't want to cover those guys because those soft tyres are going to fall off towards the end in this one. Let's not forget, this is Jene Simoncic, by the way. How many points is he going to gain today? Very important for him. I think even if Simoncic gains 6 or 8 points today, we'll talk about this a little bit later on probably, but the damage in terms of momentum for Michi Hoyer is going to be immeasurable. The points are probably going to be quite minimal because Simoncic has not had the best day because of that incident he had in the pit lane a little bit earlier on, but the damage in terms of momentum that Michi Hoyer is going to suffer after this race is going to be really, really apparent in the next few rounds.
Yeah, I mean, the championship, as we pass the 4th round of the season, we are a third of the way in. There is still so much time to unfold in this championship. Remember those stats that I brought up about drivers that had won 3 races to open the season and then not won the championship and all that and that's not me trying to be negative and that such, but All I'm saying is that stats don't say everything inside the season, and it can fall apart fairly quickly. And we do hope that for Michi Hoyer, this isn't the round that it falls apart in. And to be fair, considering his pace and consistency, I don't think it will be. I think that he's going to come back strong when we head to the British Grand Prix. Of course, Silverstone's a circuit that we know he does quite well at. Noah Royver's quite close to Danny Kish, but not close enough to make a move into Tarzan. Still holding back. Alex Siebel behind us as well is fairly close, and he's through on Colin Sport because Colin Sport has come into the pit lane.
Yeah, he has. So final pit stop for him in this one, and we'll see where his battle with Danny Kish develops and who's going to get that final point. At the moment, we're looking at Danny Kish, by the way, from the position of Noah Roivers right now, and standing in. But I'm trying to work out who Noah Roivers. I believe that it is Carlos Martin. Who is standing in for today. A few drivers you may not recognise who are replacing full-time drivers, and we're getting to the point in the season now where things do chop and change a little bit in that respect. A decent performance to say that he's not a full-time driver here from Noah Roivers. That was quite close, but it won't worry him whatsoever. 15 laps to go, or 16 laps to go when these guys cross the line. Not that long to go now, but Noah Roivers, I believe, has made his final pit stop and Danny Kish hasn't, so that's why that is a battle, whereas it otherwise wouldn't be. Although, Roivers is in a battle with Simoncic, so we'll see how this develops as we go down to turn 1.
Into the pit lane, then, and out of the pit lane is Jerne Simoncic. It's going to come out quite close to all this battling. They're going to stay out ahead. That's a bit of a mistake from Noah Roivers, and a bit more of a mistake as he lights it up on the rear of the car. And that lighting up on the rear, Jerne Simoncic will say, yes, please, thank you very much to that one, as he hangs on to 7th place. Oh, I mean, he's pretty lucky there, because that would have been an extra driver he would have had to fight his way past. No, sirree, not today.
Yeah, so it looks like Simoncic is going to come out in 4th place at the moment as Petr Burliak comes in. Mohamed Patel and Jens Braksok aren't going to be too far behind. So as long as Patel and Braksok don't get back through on Simoncic, then he's going to be able to get 4th place out of this, the 2-time champion. That would reduce the margin to 15 points in the championship. But as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, you don't want to give Jerne Simoncic a foot in the door here. Michi Hoyer had him completely under the cosh early on in this season, but he's got a foot in the door now. When you give him an inch, he takes a mile. So Hoyer's not in trouble, just fine, but it's going to be extremely damaging to him to have lost these points.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's got a 27-point lead, which means that no matter what, anything that could happen today, he was going to lead the championship departing this round, no matter what. And all things considered, his closest championship rival, Jerne Simoncic, I don't think he's winning today. Going to be on the podium, I reckon, by the end of it, which is fair enough. But 15 points is going to close in a fair amount, but not too much. I think he'll be fairly happy in the sense that Petr Burliak is the one that's leading the race. And it seems that maybe even Dennis Jordan, who is ahead of Jerne Simoncic at the moment, and quite a way ahead as well as things stand. That's a very big gap. That Dennis Jordan's going to be likely to be second, or at least on the podium as well. All these drivers getting in between Simoncic and him towards the front, that's just extra points he doesn't have to worry about. So as much as, yes, there is a retirement to his name and next to his list, I don't think there's too much of a worry at the moment. This is Jerne Simoncic on board with at the moment, right on the back of Danny Kish, the Hungarian. And considering how hungry Jerne Simoncic was in the earlier stage of the race, I am pretty sure we have got a move coming our way fairly shortly into turn 1.
Yeah, it looks like it, unless Danny Kish comes into the pit lane here, which he... Oh, no, he doesn't. Just about, and he's going to hang on here. I think he's almost tricked Simoncic there into thinking that Kish was going to go into the pit lane, but in the end he didn't. And so he's allowed Simoncic to, or kind of defended the move without having to, if you see what I mean. Mohamed Patel's recently been in the pit lane, by the way, and behind this he's battling with Noah Roivers on new soft tyres, gets in front of Roivers now. 7th place for Mohamed Patel, and surprisingly to me, he's not that far behind Jerne Simoncic, so that's why Simoncic wanted so badly to get in front of Kish on that particular lap, because he wanted to try and get away from Mohamed Patel, but that hasn't really happened, and now Patel's on new soft tyres right behind the reigning champion, and so he's going to really want to get through here.
Certainly is. By the way, Petr Burliak, who's been into the pit lane, has come out of the pit lane. Purple first sector, good middle sector, comes across the line, and wouldn't you know it, fastest lap of the race. A 10.1 as Janis Brakshock into the pit lane. David Borotchek and Dennis Jordan rounding out the podium. As things stand, is Danny Kish coming into the pit lane this time. He does need to come into the pit lane for his final stop. I think he's actually 2 laps out of his pit lane. It might actually be at the end of this lap that he'll be venturing his way into the pit lane. Has done 20 lap stint is currently 18 laps into the stint, so expected in fairly shortly. He'll be out on the soft tyres and will go for a very fast lap at the final moments of this race. But Jone Simoncic wants him in ASAP, because you're absolutely right. Who's that behind him? Fresh soft tyres, looking super duper fast at the moment. Mohammed Patel is closing in.
Yeah, he is indeed, and new soft tyres, as we keep mentioning, they're not as crucial as I thought they were going to be. You're seeing with Jordan and Mochek right now that they're not decisive, but they are going to be a help. And let's not forget how quick Simoncic was earlier on. When he put some new softs on, he was flying up the order. So you never know what you can do with these kind of things. It seems to be a driver-to-driver basis, but Patel does look fairly feisty right now on the back of Simoncic. Kish may well be in very, very shortly, allowing these two to really fight for it. But if Simoncic is able to put a car in between himself and Patel, oh my goodness me, his heart would have been in his mouth there. So would everyone down at first heat. But now to the outside goes Mohammed Patel. Danny Kish is into the pit lane. It's between these two FSR World Champions round the outside for Mohammed Patel. Can he make this move at turn 1? So close between the two of them. Simoncic just about keeps it out of the side of Patel, and the man on the soft tyres is through.
Yeah, that kind of... I mean, it was a brilliant move. It's just the superior grip on Mohammed Patel just allowed them to get through in that scenario. Obviously gets the double overtake in a sense, because Danny Kish came into the pit lane, but brilliant stuff from Mohammed Patel to get up into 4th place as things continue in this race. That was pretty spicy. And Jone Simoncic, considering what happened to his teammate, considering what's happened to quite a few drivers this day on the exit curb there, at the penultimate corner. Whoa. Yeah, I don't think you'll be catching him make that mistake anymore this race.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be out there, certainly, if I'd just seen what's transpired so far this race. We've seen multiple drivers, and Luca D'Amelio's actually out of the race, by the way. Not sure where that happened, but yeah, we've seen multiple crashes through that penultimate corner with that curb. You know, if you just run too wide, there's a wall very close there to collect you, and we've seen that happen already. And to be fair, the only man I've really seen venturing anywhere near that curb is Jone Simoncic in that one. He's so committed, he's such a perfectionist that he wants to maximise every single corner. He could have paid the price for that a few moments ago, but really, when I've been looking up and down the order, I've seen people be really quite tentative and almost scared of that curve now because of of the cars it has collected in the past. But you know, Simoncic is the only one really to have really committed out there and you know, really risked it. So it just shows what a perfectionist and what kind of risk he is willing to take here. But it nearly didn't pay off for him right then.
He's going to be coming under pressure from Noah Roivers behind, as is the train that is closing in, because, yeah, we've got Roivers, we've got Brakshock, we've got Siebel, and we've got Panzar. Danny Kish a fair way off the back as things stand. There is Janis Brakshock. Janis Brakshock has come out fairly recently. He's only got a couple of laps on these hard tyres, so he's on the freshest of the bunch and will try and fight his way through. Siebel as well will be trying to close his way, although Siebel is on a lot older tyres. Not too much, I guess they're only 8 laps in. All of the tyres are fairly fresh up towards this front battle, but I would be focused on Janis Brakshock to try and get himself involved in this. We know he can be a little bit aggressive, particularly towards the end of the race, so maybe a move from him, but it's going to be a hard one to try and get by Jone Simoncic. I think Danny Kish might be setting the fastest lap of the race, obviously kind of expected. Obviously he's on a fairly low tank, he's on soft tyres, does a 10.112 and does set the fastest lap of the race from P10. No Roivers on the screen at the moment. Dropping back from Jone Simoncic, seeming to do enough to hold on to 5th place for now. Janis Brakshock closing in.
Yeah, he is just for the moment, as you mentioned, just ever so slightly newer tyres. Not really decisive, certainly. We've seen soft to hard kind of tyre differences not really be decisive, so that kind of tyre difference isn't going to be either. But I think apart from that battle, this is one to watch as well. Whether Dennis Jordan is just biding his time right now, I'm not entirely sure, or whether he's just really struggling to get close enough to get through. But as you mentioned last week, when you've got a pace advantage over somebody, you want to hit them as hard as possible, as soon as possible. But Jordan's just biding his time at the moment, much like Siebel before him last week. Just kind of waiting where he is. And if he's got that little bit of pace, then he needs to kind of use it now instead of waiting like Siebel did. Well, Siebel wasn't exactly waiting, but he couldn't get through initially and then couldn't get through at all. So to avoid the same fate, Jordan needs to at least have a go at some point, I would say, on David Moshik. Otherwise, those hard tyres are going to come into their own, and Jordan's going to be left with not enough laps to do anything.
I think they already have come into their own. I think they have already come into their own.
Well,
10 laps into the stint. Dennis Jordan, his personal best lap of the race was a 10.3. His current lap, an 11.5. So I think the pace has already gone on those soft tyres, and basically it's just a waiting game. Rodger doesn't seem to be pulling away though, so there's still potential for a move in the scenario. But the peak performance of that grip has effectively gone from that tyre. He's just awaiting that right opportunity, and if it comes, it comes. I get the feeling that it probably won't. Difficult to overtake at Zandvoort, and it's a game of applying pressure. It's a game of trying to force a mistake, because at the moment, it doesn't seem like he's going to be afforded the opportunity to make it stick himself on the racetrack in natural conditions.
It doesn't look like it, but, you know, we keep saying how those tyres probably falling off for Dennis Jordan. We think they're falling off, but I didn't even really see him make any kind of attempt when he did have that tyre advantage. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, if I'm totally honest. But Motek is having a good drive today. Slows this man, Petr Birliak, out front at the moment for BS Williams. We've not really seen this kind of form all season so far, but now at round 4, certainly getting his eye in with this car, with the new strategic element of the races these days. He is certainly getting to grips with that kind of thing, and so now kind of back to his, I hesitate to say back to his very best, back to maybe 2015 form, which saw him take the World Championship, but certainly back somewhere near his best. And he didn't have a great, as I keep mentioning, didn't have a great start to the season. Coming in today, he was only 22 points next to his name, a whopping 53 behind Michi Hoyer. He's going to pretty much halve that today, and he can only be pleased. And the thing is, really, if you look at the guys up front right now, Birliak, Motek, Jordan, Patel, haven't had ideal starts to the season. So what this has basically done is closed up the championship quite a lot. And now we've got a lot more drivers who are in much closer proximity to Michi Hoyer than they were before.
It'd be unwise to rule out a driver of the like of Birliak to taking a title, because he is an immense driver when it comes to his talent. When he won the championship in 2015, well, when did he win his first race? That's right, it was round 4 of the season. What round are we? We are round 4. Not saying that it's destiny, but you never know. Do love myself a good few stats. He's been a while since he's been taken a victory. Of course, it was the British Grand Prix last year. Taken victories every now and then. It's been basically every season since he rejoined the World Championship full-time in 2018, and looks to be continuing that trend as he sets his sights on his 17th Grand Prix victory. We'll see if that one can unfold in a positive fashion for him. Mohammed Patel, 13.3 seconds off of Dennis Jordan, basically just driving around in a little world of his own, off of the podium. If anything happens for those two ahead, then it will be an ideal circumstance, but alas, I'm not 100% sure. That result Schuch getting out of the way and going a lap down on Mohammed Patel, and the battle for 5th seems to be firing up. No Roivers has closed back in. Janis Brakshock a part of it as well. Alex Siebel and Panzart not far behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't quite notice how close Siebel was, but he is right there. And from Simoncic down to Panzar, we are kind of in a little bit of a train at the moment, with almost 5 cars involved. Whether any of those guys can actually do anything at this stage is another issue. We've only got 5 laps to go at the end of this one, let's not forget. So about 5.5 for those guys that are heading around the top of the circuit right now. Yeah, it's all closing up quite nicely. Whether there's going to be any last lap diving remains to be seen, but you know, the tyre difference is kind of evening out at this stage. There's not really much to speak of in terms of that. It is purely down to the driver at this point and whether they can find a way through. For the moment, guys like Dennis Jordan just not quite getting close enough. The slipstream is there, but not quite enough of it, and he's not quite close enough to head into turn 1 on the inside or even the outside of David Motek to try and make this move.
he's desperate to find a way through at the moment. Obviously, it'll be a joint personal best result for Devon Rodger, who's not taken a victory in the World Championship, has been a part of it full-time since 2019, has had 4 podiums in that run, including a second place at Britain and Portugal Great Britain in 2019 and Portugal last season, but not both in the same year. Did get a podium at Silverstone, so maybe eyeing that up for a 3rd consecutive podium at the home of British motorsport in a couple of weeks' time when we head to Silverstone for the 2021 season, looking for his 5th podium and looking to hold on from Dennis Jordan, who's been a mainstay in the championship since last year, where I distinctly remember his retirement in the first round of the season last year when we went to the Malaysian Grand Prix, a disconnection for Dennis Jordan. As of that, has looked very, very consistent. Hasn't looked tippy-top form this season. 5th, 6th and 11th. Consistent, for the first 2 rounds, 5th and 6th. Had that pretty ballsy strategy, we'll go with, at Portugal, where he qualified a little bit further down the order and then worked his way back up after qualifying on the hards. Last round as well, kind of tried something a little bit interesting on strategy. This time, after not qualifying particularly well again, he's qualified in 8th place, if I recall correctly, has worked his way up onto the podium. Looks like he is getting to grips with how to race this car day in, day out.
Yeah, it looks like it. It can't be, brushed aside, the kind of difficulty of getting used to a new car. If you were tuned in last season for any of the races, then you'll realise that not only do they look different, quite radically actually, but they drive quite different as well. They race quite different. And, we got different kind of aspects around the championship with the tyres, with the fact that we've got no DRS this season. And it's all kind of getting to grips with these kind of things. And some people are more adaptable than others. Straight away in a season, you get people with a new set of regulations and they're very, very quick straight away. Michi Hoyer seems to be a case in point. He's got used to these very quickly. But some people a little bit slower to get up to speed. I would argue that guys like Peter Berliak and Dennis Jordan are 2 of those people who have just ever so slightly struggled to get to grips with this new car, but it will come with time because we know that those kind of guys, they do have the talent, just maybe not the kind of initial adaptability to the car that they quite needed at the start of this season, but starting to find it now. And we're starting to see a more recognisable order up towards the front. We did see a few kind of freak results early on. I mean, no disrespect to guys like Liam Duval, who got a podium at Imola, but we did see a few stranger results.
It was just a little bit of a switch in traffic in the background. It's actually battling for position. Zolcic and Ibrahim Khan, obviously they're a lap down on this sense, but they are going side by side through T2 and T3. We know that inside bit at 4, though, drops away aggressively. Ibrahim Khan is going to send it in and all the way around the top. No. And there's the contact away into the barrier, just getting caught on the rear wheel. And Zolcic takes a trip to the Armco.
Yeah, I'm afraid he's just got out of it now, but let's see once again what's happened between these two. Try and get a good camera angle to kind of view this one, really, but it's kind of difficult to tell. That's looks like from the offboard that Ibrahim Khan just came up ever so slightly into Zooks. This is going to give us a good view. Does Zooks come down, or does Khan go up? It's looking pretty good for Zooks right now, I have to say. Khan's gone up into Zooks, I'm afraid, and that one is on him.
Actually, if you look at that, I mean, yeah, he was going up, but Zolcic was losing it on the curb as well, and the contact just sent him round. I know that it's very, very light, but I'd almost say that Ibrahim Khan was going to make contact, but he did lose it on the curb first, so... Read into that what you will.
Well, yeah, exactly. Very difficult.
Sorry for the swingman, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I know you said earlier you weren't a fan of swingman on broadcast, but you've got your wish there. I think Cam might have just done that to annoy you, which I'm personally a fan of. But but anyway, it doesn't matter. We're about to go into the final lap of this race, by the way. Lap 72 of 72 is about to begin. Peter Berliak crosses the line now to begin, and so yeah. What can you say about this man today? What I was going to mention a little bit earlier on, by the way, is that Michi Hoyer, as we know, won the first 3 races. He's won the first 3 races on the same strategy as well. Soft, hard, hard. But Berliak has gone soft, hard, soft. So I believe this is the first chance for a different strategy to prevail in the World Championship for 2021.
Wow, a driver who has won his fair share of races, though. Petr Berliak is doing a fantastic job here today. Has just driven the race that he wanted, qualified in second position, and looks like he is going to be taking a race victory. Last season, he was on the podium, ended that one in second place, and today it looks like he is going to be making that one step better. Since he got out front, courtesy of that mistake of Michi Hoy running it out onto the curb this very corner. Well, there's been no looking back. And for BS Williams, it's going to be Petr Berliak crossing the line for his 17th Grand Prix victory. And there we go to tick it off. Round 4 of the season, the Dutch Grand Prix is here. David Rodger will be returning to the podium for his 3rd consecutive season. It's another one. It's 2nd place for him, his 5th podium in the championship. And Dennis Jordan will be crossing the line in 3rd. Yannick Simičić, by the way, will be hanging on from Noah Roivers as we see Mohamed Patel crossing the line. It is pretty tight behind, but nothing able to happen. Simičić, Roivers and Brackstock all going to be coming in a couple of seconds separated. The rest of the finishers will be crossing the line, and 9 retirements to the day. High attrition at the Zandvoort circuit, and to be fair, kind of expected.
It was kind of expected and quite a good rate. I have to say, you know, we weren't expecting much from the Zandvoort circuit because it's so difficult to overtake, but I have to say I have enjoyed the Dutch Grand Prix here today. Petr Berliak taking his 17th FSR World Championship victory here tonight and moves himself much closer in this championship. Now he's 28 points back, and from looking very, very distant in it, he's starting to become a bit of a contender once more. Yannick Simičić, for the first time this season, finishes off of the podium, and so however he still finishes in 5th place. There he is on the standings, just behind Mohamed Patel. That closes the championship margin at the front to just 17 points, so not the worst day all in all for Michi Hoy, but still he did retire from the race. He's going to lose points. There's your full results though. Berliak, Mocek and Jordan finishing in the top 3, and we're going to get them in and chat to them in a few moments time.
Berliak's still going to be leading by a fair margin, all things considered, because Yannick Simičić is going to close in 10 points, so he's going to be on 58 points at the end of this. Berliak's obviously got 25 points that he'll be closing in and will be jumping up in the championship to 3rd position, so all things are fairly tight. Whilst we're here then, whilst we've finished the race, let's take a bit of an interview with the race winner himself. What a race it was. Qualified in 2nd position, took a race victory. How was that one for you?
That was like a time trial on those hards. Yeah, I knew in the 2nd and 3rd stint that was crucial that I stay with Michi. But then I think he caught the curb. That's what I heard. And that made my job quite a bit easier. I think it'll be really interesting. He'd probably have track position, but I would be on softs in the last stint. And yeah, it would be 15 laps of battling for the win. So that's a shame from that perspective, but obviously I'm happy with the win.
Michi Hoy was in chat earlier, by the way, and it was the curb that caught him, saying that you were a very worthy rival and potentially won. I mean, even he said in chat that you were looking like you were going to come out on top in that battle based on what he was looking at. So obviously he has a lot of faith in your pace. Considering his crash on that curb, considering knowing the issues of that curb, was that a massive concern later in the race, or did you have that one measured up?
Yeah, I was just touching it barely on exit, or just completely avoiding it. And I think there were maybe 2 laps where I went slightly wider, but other than that, I pretty much stay off of it because I knew it wasn't really worth half the 10th. Except if I would maybe have to overtake for the win, then I would risk it. But other than that, no.
We grabbed you in the interview room back in Portugal a few weeks ago, where you got yourself onto the podium. Said it was a bit of a lucky podium that day, working your way up the order and avoiding the crash at turn 1 that day. Today, seeming very much like it wasn't luck. And I gave the throwback on stats-wise earlier in the broadcast that you took your first race victory in 2015 in the 4th round of the season. Obviously, went on to win the championship that year. What are the chances of that happening in 2021?
Well, I think we got the wings nailed down pretty much for this track. We missed them a little bit in the previous track, so we are competitive in qualifying as well. and I finally did a good lap. At the last track, I was supposed to be probably top 4, but I just did a shit qualifying. Let's be honest. And yeah, my race pace was always very good. I'd say on this track, like compared to my teammates, I saw that I was, if I qualified well, I was probably going to fight for the win. So yeah, it wasn't luck on this one, but yeah, I think moving forward, considering how we developed the setup a little bit better from this race onwards, we could be more competitive overall.
Well, thanks, Petter. Yet another Grand Prix victory and taking top honours here at the Dutch Grand Prix. We'll move on to our runner-up from the Grand Prix, David Rodger, who joins us in the booth. 5th podium in the FSR World Championship. Good race, a lot of pressure at the latter points of it.
Hi. First of all, big congratulations to Petter. Like, completely unbelievable pace. I couldn't believe that you're able to do such lap times on hards. But yeah, when it comes to my race, yeah, there was plenty of pressure during that last stint from Dennis. And actually, before my last stop, I was basically 100% sure that I'm going to come out of the pits behind Dennis because he undercut me and he was on softs and I was on hards. But somehow I kept that position, and then, well, basically it was, I guess, as you could see, it's really difficult to overtake here if there's if two drivers have similar pace to each other. There's like nearly no way to overtake. So yeah, I was able to keep that position. I'm quite happy with it because, like, yeah, P1 was in another league.
Well, you've been building up results this season. Obviously had a retirement in the first round of the season, 9th in Portugal, 5th in Germany, now 2nd place, so moving your way forward. And the British Grand Prix, which is next, seems to be a circuit which works out for you. The 2 previous times that you've run it in 2019 and 20, you've been on the podium, 2nd and 3rd. Confident for another podium that time out, maybe even towards the top step?
Yeah, I think I even said like a couple of days ago that I'm aiming for victory at Silverstone. I mean, like my rivals are incredibly good, so it's not gonna be easy. But I think it's one of my favorite tracks in the calendar. So, well, let's see what happens. Well, yeah, but I feel quite strong before that race.
Well, thanks, David. Joining us in the booth, runner-up today, 2nd place on the road. We'll head our way down to Dennis Jordan, race winner here in 2020. Not quite as much here at the Dutch Grand Prix in 2021. Talk us through your race.
Well, yeah, I mean, after qualifying looked pretty bad once again, to be honest. But yeah, I knew that my race pace here was quite good, especially at the end of the stint. So I think a lot of other people got caught up in traffic there. So I could jump a lot of guys in the first stop, which basically gave me the position I was in now. And yeah, after that, yeah, I tried to get David, but it's just too tough. There isn't really anything you can do unless you're multiple seconds faster.
Qualifying, as you say, did seem like it was quite a struggle. You qualified in 7th position. Alex qualified down in 13th, of course, your teammate. Is that going to be the focus heading into Great Britain, is rectifying those issues, knowing that this car is fairly difficult to pass in?
Well, I mean, it's not like we haven't tried before. So, but yeah, we will try again. It's just, I mean, the field is super competitive. You know, the qualifying times are so close, so it's... And any mistake counts. So yeah, need to do a better job, but let's see.
And we know that you are quite good when it comes to strategy and stuff. Seen you experiment a lot in the last couple of races. This time, though, after starting from 7th, you've worked your way up the order very successfully. Are you learning new bits each round on strategy?
Yeah, I think strategy actually has been good each race so far. Just got a bit unlucky last race, but yeah, I mean, yeah, even when the qualifying is not ideal, it's nice to be able to look forward to probably a couple of gain positions in the pit stop. So we can continue doing that.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Another successful podium in the FSR World Championship. We'll see if there'll be more on the horizon. Back to Ewan. Another Grand Prix under our belt. We're a third of the way through the season, and high drama once again at Zandvoort. Our championship leader out of the race, and you can see what that's done to the standings. Michi Hoyer still leads, but only just, as Jerne Simičić does close in that 10 points better. Boliak up to third place. Alex Siebel fourth, and Dennis Jordan now inside the top 5, looking like we're going to have a pretty hefty fight over the final 2/3 of the championship.
Yeah, it definitely does. It feels like we're kind of too early to be already 1/3 through the season, really. It feels like we're only just getting started, but really there is only 8 rounds to go now. And yeah, what this race has done is just closed everything up nicely. So yeah, the rest of this championship should be very good indeed. Make sure you tune in. Couple of weeks until we're at the British Grand Prix, but last year's race was the first race I ever did for FSR, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I'm expecting absolutely no less from the drivers on the 25th of April. Make sure you tune in. It should be a good one.
Yeah, a couple of weeks' time to the home of British motorsport. Hopefully we'll see you then. Plenty more to come in the FSR World Championship, brought to you by SimLab, 3D Wrap, Masita Esports and The Race. I've been Lewis McGlade, alongside me, Ewan O'Leary and Cam Rodger on the cameras. Cam, taking us through the actions. Obviously a big thanks to the Prez himself. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, though, bye-bye.